I don't think we've had this many people, so thank you all for being here. Appreciate y'all. And thanks CPI for having us here. The State Advisory Group, we're coming to. This is our State Advisory meeting. We have these meetings every 3 months, every quarter. We have 4 meetings throughout the year. This is our second one. We have 2 more, and then we have a lot of different things in between those meetings. So just thank you all for being here. Gonna basically quickly, I'm actually gonna pass it to my boy Tariq to go through the agenda. Wait,
Yeah, so, hello, everybody, I'm Tyree. So for the agenda, first we'll start with a roll call. I'll call roll call. We will go to an action item, to approve the 2026 March minutes. Then we'll go into some SAG YJ committee chair updates. Then we'll go into some OYCR informational updates. We'll have a presentation by the ombudsman, ombudsperson. Then we'll take a quick short break after that. Then we'll get into a community presentation by the National Compadres Network. We'll have some subcommittee updates, and then we'll get into public comments and adjourn the meeting after that. Now, briefly turn it over to Shelby Mitchell, who will provide instructions for members on how to participate virtually. Then I'll take roll.
Okay, everyone. Good morning and welcome. I have brief instructions for the meeting. Members of the public are encouraged to keep their videos off and mute yourself for the duration of the meeting, please. If you are both in the meeting room and also connected on Zoom, please remember to keep your microphone and your device speaker muted for the duration of the meetings. Some instructions for participation. Committee member participation is welcome throughout the session. There will also be opportunities identified for public comment. During the opportunities for public comment, each participant will have 2 minutes for their comments. Members of the committee and members of the public may also post, or no, I think we disabled the Zoom chat, but you can put comments in the chat and members of our production team will field them for us. In order to participate, if you're joining via Zoom, if you would like to make public comment during the designated time, you can use the raise hand feature on the Zoom application. When called upon, please unmute yourself and feel free to also turn your camera on, and we will lower your hand once your name is received. If you're joining via phone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. Someone will call out your phone number, and when asked to unmute, you can do so using *6. We will then lower your hand. You can proceed with your public comment. And please try to eliminate any background noise before unmuting your microphone. If you are on site in the room, thank you all for participating here. We do have public comment cards over on the table. You can take one, and we'll put you guys in order during the public comment period. And if any public comments are missed, or if there are any additional inquiries, you can email sagyj@chhs.ca.gov with your full name and your question. And then you can also email us through the oycr.ca.gov website. That concludes the instructions for today, and I'm gonna turn it back to membership to go through roll call.
All right, so roll call. Supervisor Joe Baca Jr. Call it one more time. Supervisor Joe Baca Jr.
Okay. Supervisor.
Got you. Honorable Brian Beck. Here. Isaiah Barber. Isaiah Barber. Carol Biondi.
Here.
Dr. BJ Davis.
I'm here.
Dr. Carly Durkheiden,
Here.
Michael Duncan,
Here.
Christian Franco, Michelle Guinan.
Here.
Susan Sands, Monte Magic McKay, Kip Mendoza,
Here.
Dr. T. Coy Porter Senior, Tyreek Ship is here, Dr. Mimi Silver, and Dante Williams. I'll go through some of those names that I called one more time to see if anybody may have jumped on. Isaiah Barber, Christian Franco, Susan Sands, Monte Magic McKay, Dr. T. Coy Porter Senior, Dr. Mimi Silver, and last, Dante Williams. So it looks like we have quorum, so roll call is complete. If members arrive late or after roll call, we'll pause and then take, notice that they have arrived and report that. And I will turn it back to you, Chairman Mendoza.
Thank you, Mr. Chip. And now we're going to our chair updates. Unfortunately, our vice chair, Christian Franco, was not able to make it here today. So today we're gonna have Tyreek taking his role. So apologies for that. And I guess I just wanted to say again, thank you to UPI for having us here today, Urban Peace Institute for allowing us to host our second in-person SAG YJ meeting here. And I wanted to quickly introduce one of our folks that works here, Josh Green, who's in the audience. So just quickly maybe just introduce what UPI, where are we, what is this building, maybe a quick little background about what UPI does and the work you guys do, and just maybe anything that we should know about UPI. So I just want to, and also just thank you again, Josh, for allowing us to host this meeting here today. So I'll pass it to Josh to kind of talk to us about this space here today. Okay, you can stand up, you can get up, you can.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Josh Green. I'm the Senior Director of Justice Transformation here at Urban Peace Institute. I see a bunch of familiar faces. Welcome. First and most importantly, if anyone needs a restroom and you're here in person, they are out there in the hallway. They're by the elevators. There are 2 restrooms out there. UPI, Urban Peace Institute, we've been around for over 10 years now. We originally were a project and was now known as Catalyst California, or Advancement Project back in the day, which is also in this building. Our work sits at the intersection of justice, transformation, and safety. And so that looks like a lot of different things, but for us, we really believe that you can't have safe communities if you don't transform our justice systems. And you really can't transform the justice systems unless you're trying to keep people safe. One of our founders, Connie Rice, always says that the first civil right is safety. And you can't have any of the rights unless you are free from violence. And so this is sort of the core part of our mission. And what that looks like for us is we train and certify and support violence intervention workers, street violence intervention workers here in the city of Los Angeles, but also around the nation. We've trained in cities and counties across the US. But we work really closely here in LA. So this room that you're in is where we provide a lot of our training to gang intervention workers here. We also have supported training locally for the pre-arrest diversion providers for youth here for what is now DYD, originally a part of the Youth Diversion and Development Office. We also have provided training for the Credible Messengers, which is the transformative mentors who work in locked facilities with young people. We provided training here in this room. And also on the adult side, we train what is called here in LA, either law enforcement assisted diversion or let everyone achieve dignity, which is sort of a comprehensive, intensive case management for populations here in LA that have high substance use disorder, houselessness, homelessness crisis, mental health disorders. So this is the space that you're in, is where we've worked with providers, street level folks who are doing that sort of frontline work. And then we're trying to build new systems of care. So the idea is, you know, these need to be rooted in the people who are leaving, like many of the folks who are here, folks on this panel. That's sort of the core of our work. So we're really excited to have you here. Welcome, everybody. I'm actually going to step out because I have other work meetings I need to do, but I really appreciate you all being here. We're excited to be a part of this work. And so I'll hand it back to you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, UPI. And yeah, so again, welcome to UPI and let's get this meeting started. I think the next item on our agenda is going to be approving our minutes from our March 2026 meeting. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Mr. Chip to go through a roll call to approve the minutes from our March meeting. Perfect.
Supervisor Baca moves the item, the minutes.
Oh, yeah. Motion, anybody has a motion to approve the meetings? Okay, cool. Baca, motion and. So we need someone to motion and we need someone to second. So anybody wants to motion to approve the minutes for March?
I'll second Bobby Junior's motion.
Is that good? Is that, okay, cool. Okay.
All right. Let's conduct a roll call to approve the meeting minutes from March this year. Supervisor Del Baca Junior,
Supervisor Joe Baca Junior, aye.
Honorable Brian Beck,
I think I was not at that meeting, so I.
Isaiah Barber, Carol Biondi,
Yes.
Dr. B.J. Davis,
Yes.
Dr. Carly Durkheim,
Yes.
Michael Duncan,
Yes.
Christian Franco, Michelle Guyton,
Yes.
Susan Sands, Monte Magic McKay, Kim Mendoza,
Yes.
Dr. T. Coy Porter Senior,
Yes.
Tyreek Ship, yes. Dr. Mimi Silver, Dante Williams. All right.
Okay, good, right? Have 9A. Right? But abstain and the rest. So item, the minutes have been approved and are moved. And before we jump into the next topic of the agenda, I wanted to quickly, I forgot and I skipped this, but part of our chair of this, I wanted to ask Mr. Dr. Porter, if you could quickly, I know that Dr. Porter, you just went to the got the name of the conference, but there was a conference, right? SAGYJ conference.
Yeah.
And it'd be great if maybe if you could share a little bit about how was that, and you know, maybe report back on how was that a conference and if there's anything that we should just keep in mind as we do this work as committee members. So I just wanted to open the floor for you to quickly just share a little bit about how that went, if you don't mind.
Okay. Well, it's in my report too, so, but I'll be happy to do that. Just recently went to the Coalition for Juvenile Justice Conference in Washington, DC. I think I was the only member there, but with so OYCR staff. It was a great conference, great learning experience for us. It's a national conference, so you're seeing a lot of the state advisory groups and youth justice groups doing making presentations as well there. One thing that really enlightened me and that moved me a lot was that the youth that were involved in the juvenile system were championing the solutions. And so we saw a lot of that happening there. Of course, you have your experts that have been working on this a lot, but California came actually big. Susie's group is a very powerful group. They actually led presentations and really set the bar in terms of providing solutions. California is one of the leading states in the juvenile justice work, probably as many of you know. And so that was really seen and felt and heard there in DC. And so it was a great time. We learned a lot there, and I encourage everyone who can go next year to find a way to do so.
Okay. Before we continue, I just want to take note about people for the senior in our attendance as well. So we have to make sure we got the right numbers for not again for the minutes to like see you there in Mendoza. Yeah.
Oh, I think Monte has joined the meeting, so maybe you wanna.
Yeah, we can acknowledge the attendance. Monte McKay, are you here? Monte McKay, are you here?
Can you mute yourself, Monte McCain, just confirm that you're here? We could circle back to this, but we do have two people that joined, so Dr. Porter, acknowledge, and then Magic McCain will come back to you. But we do have quorum and we have it all. You go. Thanks, Dr. Porter. Anybody wanted to add to that? I don't know who else went, YCR staff, you guys wanted to add anything about the trip to DC, or is that good?
I'm sure I can add, I attended the conference as well. It was a nice, long conference, very well attended just across the country. California was very well represented between OICR staff and some of our consultants and our youth advisory board. So really good information, very youth focused. A lot of the workshops were geared towards the youth. And so it was a good experience. We hope that there's more attendance next year. And that's my report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool, so let's go ahead and move on to the next item of our agenda, which is gonna be the OICR informational updates. We have Dr. Michael Massa was gonna, with the Office of Youth of OICR Health Policy Division Chief. We have Lindsay Rosenthal with the EGI subject matter expert, Crystal and Proxima, who are gonna provide us updates on these things. So I'll go ahead and pass it to Mr. Dr. Michael Massa. Yeah, provide updates on the Health Policy Division.
Okay, good morning, everyone. How are you guys?
Hey.
Okay, perfect. So I spoke at the last meeting. My name is Michael Massa. I'm representing the Health Policy Division for the Office of Youth and Community Restoration. Just for reference, I just wanted to take us back to what that means, right? The Health Policy Division. So we focus on 5 areas around youth justice, being CBO capacity building, less restrictive programs, ending girls' incarceration, state behavior health initiatives, and educational health. So it's a lot of work. I've tried to simplify it just to help with our focus areas and keep us really grounded in what we're doing. EGI, though, is the focus for what we're here to provide an update on. At our last meeting, I gave a broad overview of the work that we're doing. We're really supporting the ending of girls' incarceration in 4 counties: Sacramento, Imperial, Los Angeles, and San Diego. This was an initiative that was transitioned over to the Health Policy Division at the end of January. You know, and I just want to contextualize how we've approached the work. We're using improvement science methodology, where we've identified problems of practice in each of the 4 counties, created a methodical structure to understand those local nuance so that we can build out action plans according to those local resources within those counties. We've had this since January. We've had to reevaluate all of the contracts we have with the 4 respective probation departments. There are also partner community-based organizations that are integral to the work. It's not just, state offices and probation departments, but the community is really where a lot of the work is going to be supported by. And so I know there's a lot of focus, especially in Los Angeles, on what's going on with the girls. I do just want to refresh that prior to OYCR, I worked for the Los Angeles County Office of Education, where I was the principal at Central Juvenile Hall, which was the consolidation site for girls in juvenile detention in Los Angeles. So this is very personal to me. I feel a lot of ownership over the girls in Los Angeles. I got to work with them on a daily basis through the COVID years and understand just the complexities and the nuance around the circumstances for a lot of the girls and gender expansive youth that are in detention settings. And it's one of my personal priorities to make sure we do better for them. Fortunately, there was a cluster meeting from the Board of Supervisors this morning. Kim Binion, the superintendent at the Campus Kilpatrick site, where all the girls in Los Angeles are consolidated, was able to share out just the amazing support that she's getting from OYCR, Beloved, Young Women's Freedom Center. And on top of that, we've added additional supports to really bolster this effort through our partnership with Just Solve, and in particular, Mark Varela, who's in attendance today, former probation chief of Ventura County, who is now part of this ecosystem, meeting with the leadership staff at Campus Kilpatrick on a weekly basis. So we're going in full force. We really want to make sure that we're carrying our part and taking advantage of this amazing opportunity to really reimagine what youth justice should look like for a very vulnerable population. So I also want to introduce my counterpart, Lindsay Rosenthal, who is a national subject matter expert. She came to OYCR as a consultant from the Vera Institute, who really led this charge in partnership with OYCR, with DYD here in Los Angeles, has great familiarity with what is happening, and has just been an amazing partner in the work and just knowledge that she brings to this. So if we can introduce Lindsay to speak specifically on the LA efforts, I want to make sure we're providing that update. And apparently she'll be on the FAR TV.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. And Michael, I believe you're controlling the slides, right?
Yes.
Okay. Could you start us off on the reform priorities slide for Los Angeles? And then we'll go back. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Lindsay Rosenthal. As Michael said, I joined the OYCR team back in June as the Ending Girls Incarceration subject matter expert. But prior to that, I had been at the Vera Institute of Justice for 10 years, leading work to end girls incarceration. I can't see the room, but I know many of you have participated in that effort in various ways over time. And so as Michael said, we've been really, trying something new with the Ending Girls Incarceration Action Network over 3 years, trying to figure out how to support 4 counties to simultaneously end girls incarceration through an approach that includes collaboration, not only across systems, but with community and directly impacted young people. And so systems transformation of this type is never linear. There's been lots of stops and starts and twists and turns along the way. But I would say over the last 6 months, we've really seen, a coalescing of these efforts across all of the sites. All of the sites are going to move forward into a fourth year of collaboration through June of 2027. And that is to expand on, beyond the original requirements of the OYCR grant and participation in the Action Network, to include new locally driven priorities. So, for example, in San Diego County, they have a collective and had an all-day collective meeting this past March that included a panel of young people, and they will be working one of the things they'll be working on over the fourth year is implementing at least 3 youth-led recommendations from that EGI collective process. Imperial County is in the process of serving as a rural demonstration pilot for EGI and developing solutions for rural, how EGI can function in rural counties that may not have the same resources as urban environments. And then in Sacramento, working towards enhancing collaboration with Sacramento State University and building, new systems of diversion in that county that haven't existed up until now. But today, I think primarily given the last discussion at the last meeting that you all had, I wanted to focus in more so on the work in Los Angeles, which has faced a lot of challenges, including substantial leadership turnover in the last 3 years. But as Director Binion shared out this morning, if for those of you that were able to listen to the cluster meeting in LA, there is a lot of work that has happened, particularly since last June with new leadership coming on. That's when we began collaborating with Superintendent Binion in her role overseeing CVK, as well as with David Carroll, Patricia Song, and others at DYD and Beloved Village with the team at YWFC and other CVOs. And in the last 6 months, I would say that the work has picked up. It's taken a long time for it to form together. So I'm just going to, offer some quick updates on that today. So first, I just want to say that the work is happening in the context of an EGI collaborative that began as a small group in June and has increasingly grown to include more than 40 stakeholders across multiple agencies and community-based organizations. Some of the focus areas have been reducing admission, so focusing on overrides into detention, the significant challenge with girls being admitted on bench warrants disproportionately in LA County. And those are really aimed at reducing the front door of young people coming into detention. Then there's also efforts focused on strengthening the off-ramps for young people by leveraging, both diversion and alternative continuums of care. And that just requires a greater alignment across how alternative and diversion programming is utilized in LA County. And then lastly, focusing on the implementation of Beloved with OYCR funding to really enhance what happens once young people are detained, to decrease their length of stay in the facility, increase successful community reintegration. And that's been a big part of our focus with probation recently. So I am also going to ask Jacqueline to drop some updates that you all can see in the chat. These are just more sort of micro updates on what's been happening in the last 6 months that, I think is showing some steps towards progress, and I think more traction on ending girls' incarceration in the last 6 months, probably than we've seen at least from my vantage point in the last 3 years. So Jacqueline, are you able to drop those updates in the chat for everyone to see? Or maybe, I'm not sure if folks in person will be able to see the chat.
I did drop them.
Okay. I see. I now see them. Yes. So as I mentioned, we've been meeting as a full collaborative more often. That group has been growing and increasing to include more community-based organizations, more agencies. And that's really important because I see systems of communication building that just didn't exist before. We have had an executive level approval of a technical assistance plan from OICR with probation. So that includes probation assigning dedicated staff for the EGI implementation, committing to producing weekly data reports. They have committed to starting weekly interagency release planning and population review meetings. So that's looking at every young person who's in custody, their length of stay, why they're there, what the barriers are to release, and having multi-system coordination in order to decrease length of stay, as I mentioned earlier. As of yesterday, we had an update from Judge Espinoza that all of the judicial officers have now been trained on the LADs, and any day now will be receiving the LAD scores along with the district attorneys and the public defenders prior to detention hearings, which is huge because prior to that, I think the risk screening tool has been applied in LA County, but not followed by probation, and it hasn't been transparent to all stakeholders. And so the hope is now that those screening scores are shared with the judges, that there will just be greater transparency and understanding around how detention is used, so that numbers hopefully will go down if decisions are made in greater alignment with the risk screening tool. And then also, in the first year of the Action Network, we had focused a lot on pre-adjudication housing options, and Beloved Village is doing a lot of work to do family finding, family strengthening. But Los Angeles still does need pre-adjudication short-term options when young people can't go home to avoid detention, particularly in the case of girls experiencing family violence who are coming into detention and they can't go home to their parents. And so Superintendent Binion joined a site visit to San Diego to visit the Cool Beds program, and is looking at bringing that to LA. So those are just some of the more granular updates from the last few months, and we can go to the next slide, and then I'll stop and see if there's any questions.
There's actually one now, Lindsay from
Okay.
Member Biondi.
Sure.
Member Biondi, did you want to ask your question now, or would you rather wait? Not sure if she's still there.
Yeah, fair.
Can't hear you.
Probably unmuted. I'm muted.
Okay, sorry. It's a new computer and I'm having a little technical challenges here. You certainly are identifying the things that need to be addressed. How's that going, though? I mean, how are you measuring? Because we continue to hear really disturbing things about what's actually happening to the girls. What is DYD? What was the population? Did you go out, Lindsay? Did you go out to the camp?
Yes, I've been there several times.
What was the population most recently?
It had recently been at a high of over 50. I think as of this morning, they reported at the Board of Supervisors meeting that it was at 40 or 41 down because of efforts over the last few weeks. And so, there was some discussion about how to address the ebbs and flows. But yes, we need to see that go down even further. Did you want to ask?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of people involved, a lot of people who know what should be happening for these girls, but all we hear, and I'm probably a month or so away from any update, but it was something like 58. There were 18 girls 4 years ago detained when the county said that they were going to de-incarcerate girls. Then they disrupted them from Kirby, where they had access to community groups, and taken to a place that had been working very successfully as a step-down place for the SYTF. And I haven't heard a single good thing that is actually happening for the girls there. Now, all that you've listed here and the people you have involved, Mike, Patricia, all these people are knowledgeable, caring people, but what are your results? How are you measuring how successful you're being? Because we hear that girls, the fights, which you don't even hear about with girls, Um, and they're getting a time added, not addressing that they're only there for a warrant or a runaway. I mean, all these things, you're right, but it's not changing anything for the lives of these girls.
Right. I mean, I think nothing I'm saying is to suggest, obviously, it is alarming the levels that the population has gotten to. I think probation knows that they need to get the numbers down in the facility. And the priority within EGI is decarceration and trying to do everything we can to focus on keeping young people out of the facility in the first place and facilitating their successful reintegration. So ultimately, the outcome should be that the numbers go down, that the girls are getting the community supports that they're seeing.
Well, we know they're
Yeah.
getting less now. This team, has this team been at work for a year now?
No, so the
I
technical
thought you
assistant,
said June.
yes, we started from a complete disruption where there was there was a restructure that happened within probation. When that happened, the entire team of folks at probation that were working on EGI was eliminated. And there was a
Sounds
big,
familiar.
yeah, there
Yeah.
was a big gap in participation. So just last June was when we had like very preliminary conversations with Direct Superintendent Binion, which required basically rebuilding the effort from scratch. It wasn't until I want to say early May that we had executive level sign off from probation, from Chief Deputy Arcos, to move forward with the EGI technical assistance plan that OICR proposed, which he's in the room today, so he can chime in as needed. But former Chief Mark Varela with Just Solve joined OICR as a consultant and is going to be providing enhanced technical assistance on probation operations to systematize these things that need to happen. We've also added Shalon Joseph from the Public Defender's Office, who's going to be help leading the work on the court side to see through. Ultimately, probation needs to commit to metrics for what success for EGI
Yeah,
looks like.
that's the crux of it.
And they have committed to proposing metrics at the next stakeholder meeting in July. And that happened once. And I understand it's slow and incremental. And I understand the frustration because in the meantime, young people are not getting what they need. And we all recognize that. So I'm not trying to diffuse that. I'm simply trying to share that there has been progress that we've seen in the last few months that is greater than what we've seen in the last 3 years from my vantage
And
point.
what is that, Lindsay?
It is that one of the major things is that, and this is not just because of the EGI work, right? The POC has focused a lot on this, but the LAD scores will now be transparent to everybody. The judges were just trained on that yesterday. That should
And those are really not very useful either. Do you know how they're done, where they're done, when they're done? I mean,
Well, that's a much larger conversation than I think we can have today. But in general, following a risk assessment screen and the recommendations of that screen is an evidence-based practice. If LA County followed the screen for girls, you should have over a 50% reduction in the number of kids coming into detention.
they've been using the LADs. I've been doing this since 99, 27 years, okay?
Yeah.
The LADs are no better than the risk assessment that they did 15 years ago. I see you're laughing here. And they don't follow it. So yes, I am not patient. This
Yeah,
is
and I'm not asking for
and
patience.
worse and worse.
I'm just trying to explain that up until recently, only probation had access to the LADs. And my understanding is that starting any day now, because the judges were just trained yesterday on what the LADs is, that detention, full LADs report should be shared with the child's public defender, the district attorney, and the judge. And, we can't say that that's definitely going to lead to decisions being made with greater fidelity, but I do think it's a very positive step in the right direction. And we have to see how that plays out. The other step is that probation has agreed to, both through signing off on OYCR's technical assistance plan, but also through public comments, including Director Binion at the Board of Supervisors this morning, that they will be doing the weekly release planning population review meeting. So that will mean that there will be data reports produced every week on every single young person at CVK, why they are there, how long they have been there, what their charges are, whether they're in child welfare. And that data report should be shared transparently with DYD, the Public Defender's Office, District Attorney's Office, Beloved Village, community providers, and hopefully integrating things that have fallen out, like the child
Are
trafficking.
you working with the families?
Yes, the idea is Beloved Village, which is OYCR's CBO, is doing the family finding and family strengthening with the young people. But what I'm talking about in the weekly population review is creating systems transparency and collaboration so that everybody knows why the young people are in there and what the opportunities are to release them are, what the barriers are, which is not something that has happened at all. It is not transparent. No one has that information. So when that starts, that will be a significant change. And so that's what was included in the OYCR technical assistance plan. It has not started yet. It does need to start urgently. Probation has been working to build the dedicated team that we asked for that would support that process, because it does require someone to cultivate all of those data reports, share them out with all the agencies and community-based organizations that would be participating in this meeting. This has been a request of community for years now. Lots of advocates in LA County have been asking for rapid release meetings based on this type of data and information, but it has never moved forward in any kind of systematic way. And so that's the hope I'm bringing. But again, we share your urgency, and we share disappointment with how little progress there was over the last few years with all of the transitions. And I know that the probation team that's engaged in this work sees it as a priority and also, understands the challenges with the past. And I don't know, we have, again, I said Mark Varell in the room. Mark, I don't know if there's anything you would want to add based on your engagement with probation leadership to execute on this technical assistance plan.
So I've been working with the probation leadership team, and they've been incredibly receptive. And Lindsay mentioned Chief Deputy Robert Arthos has been incredibly supportive of this, working with Superintendent Binion and her team on site. So there is a commitment from the department to move forward on this. My responsibility is to work with the department to look at any wrinkles, hiccups, and help navigate through some of these issues. In my prior job, when I was the chief in Ventura County, we went through this process, and Judge Back could attest. He was the presiding juvenile court judge when we were going through our work with JDAI and with reducing disproportionality in our system, reducing the admissions of youth of color. And so able to bring a lot of that experience over to the LA side and working with the department. So
yeah, I did. I visited that when you were there, when Judge Beck gave me a tour many, many, many years ago.
Yes.
And I suppose you all are very, very, very long down the pike. I know your numbers have been way, way down. But our people aren't even following the protocol for girls that are brought to Kirby first, the protocols of how they should be handled. So we are light years away from any of these wonderful efforts and properly identified concerns from actually being realized.
Well, looking forward to, again, working with the probation team. I haven't been involved in this effort for a long period of time, Carol, but I can tell you that the experience that I've had so far with the leadership team has been very positive, and they're very eager to move in this direction. So I'll continue my efforts and working with Lindsay and the team to make sure that we make some progress on this particular initiative.
Thank you.
Well, I'll hope we can hear a follow-up.
I want to do a quick check time. We're already past time. I want to make sure, I know Michelle had her hand up. She want to quickly ask a question to Lindsay, and then I want to move us forward to Crystal. I'm sorry, we already passed time, so I want to make sure we keep the time on check. Go
Yeah,
ahead, Michelle.
just a quick statement, then a question. As most of you know, I retired from LA County Probation, and when we were running the child trafficking unit, for the last 13 years, we were working with approximately 130 girls that were impacted by exploitation. And we got an alternative to detention grant that actually came from this committee before I was on the committee. And we had, over that period of time, less than 12% of our girls locked up in custody at any time because of the initiatives we have, the community engagement we had, and working with parents. A lot of times we're focused on kids. I hear from parents all the time, you know, or probation officers, my kid can't go home because the parents said they can't come home. And I think one of my questions, Lindsay, is what percentage of the time is Young Women's Freedom Center or Beloved really working and digging in with parents? Because we know that kids are always going to do better in their own home. Also, in a recent board report, there were, a certain percentage of, and I'm just talking about trafficked youth because the board was focused on that, where there were 35, 40 young women who hadn't had a criminal arrest in over 18 months that are in detention. And that really just speaks to all the, warrants and the runaways and things like that just nobody knows what to do with. And to me, that's not a detention problem or a probation issue. That's a trauma issue and a family and community issue. Mm-hmm. And really having more services and support in the community. So kind of twofold, what percentage of those services are really just digging in with families to get them ready for that kid to come home? Because sometimes that's the barrier because they don't have support. And secondly, you talked about reducing the intake. Has the policy for probation changed? Because the last time we had a detention policy in COVID, it was the only young people we were putting into custody were runaways and 707B offenders. So if you were in the middle, you got lucky and got to go home. It was really just those two edges. And so has that policy actually been rewritten and changed about the intake in the front door? Because that's usually what probation officers are driven by, is policy.
Thank you, Michelle. Lindsay, can you answer that question? And we'll move on with.
Yes. So, first, I think you mentioned the report that went to the board with the high percentage of girls who are or young people identified as trafficked, who were on probation for extended periods of time, who may be detained on violations, but who had no new arrests or new charges. That's a perfect example of the type of thing that will be made visible through the weekly population review that I'm talking about and that can be addressed. And I know that a big priority for Mark is looking into high fidelity into the technical violations of probation and how things are responded to. Bringing back some of the practices of the CTU, I think, is critically important. Beloved Village is working on an update about their implementation that can be shared publicly, but one of their program components is a parent navigator that works only specifically with the parent. The young person has their own advocate so that they are able to get that parental support. The challenge for Beloved has been being able to systematize their engagement with the young people in collaboration with probation, which is where we've been focused. So hopefully by the next meeting, and as soon as Beloved has that report out on their implementation, we can definitely share that with you. I think that I know we're short on time. I tried to address all of your questions very quickly, but I'm always happy to talk more. And I think the main takeaway here is that, yes, these are priorities that need to change, issues that have been identified for a long time. I'm seeing signs in collaboration with probation that they are prioritizing moving forward on these EGI action items with the team that they're building. And I'm hopeful that, over the next few months, we will see more change and more reductions in the population of young people in custody in July, as I have here on the slide, there will be draft metrics presented for the Ending Girls Incarceration work in Los Angeles County. So those metrics can be shared out to once they're, workshopped with the stakeholder group. So, again, just appreciate you paying such close attention to what's happening with the girls and gender expansive youth in LA. There definitely needs to be a lot more focus to get them what they deserve, as Michael said at the top of the meeting. And so, we all share that goal, and I'm hopeful that, we will see some of this coming together over the next few months.
Just one last comment, if I can, is California as a state is going through a complete reform as it relates to Medi-Cal. Starting October 1st, the Cal Justice Initiative will go live, which will allow our young people to start to receive services 90 days pre-release through enhanced care management services. And those enhanced care management services can also extend to the families. So there is going to be a mechanism to bring this sustainable support through the Cal Justice Initiative to families as well. And I've already made contact with the point person from LA County Probation to ensure that we stay in front of that and don't wait until October 1st to try to figure it out.
Thank you.
And I will pass it along.
Thank you.
And I think next is Crystal Lewis. So pass it over.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Still morning,
Good afternoon.
almost afternoon.
We're there.
All right, so thank you, Dr. Massa, for providing updates. I will now provide some updates from the Youth Justice Committee and then the 2025 Title II application, which this funding supports this committee and other initiatives in our office. All right, so for a quick update on the Youth Justice Committee, as shared the last meeting at the Youth Justice Committee, it's a subcommittee of the California Child Welfare Council, and it's supported by OICR. It includes a membership of youth justice stakeholders with a wide range of expertise. The Youth Justice Committee meets quarterly, such like the State Advisory Group here. They just met last week on June 10th, and the members are focusing on two priority areas: diversion and data, with a focus on outcomes. So they're working to put together a panel of diversion experts to share insight, both with the committee and the public, on best practices. They will be working with those insights to develop guidance and document and create a framework to support the field. They're also working on exploring how outcomes, especially indicators of well-being, are currently being tracked for young people in SYTF placements, and what some options could be for providing useful guidance in that area. Also noting that the YJC is organizing a diversion panel at our upcoming Youth Justice Summit in October. So if you would like any information on that conference that our office is putting on, as well as the committee itself, it's on our website. Next public meeting will be September 9th. All right. And then on to some brief updates for this 2025 Title II. Our office submitted that application May 1st. There were no substantive changes to the 3-year plan, which is essentially the application to OJJDP, and we do not have any updates on that. What I can share is this was a streamlined version. It was a year late. We will be receiving $4.2 million from 2025 funding. We have not received any update on that application submission. And then, of course, next is 2026. So we are just waiting for those updates. But just to kind of just give some kind of a breakdown of what that looks like. It includes the 3-year plan. It includes the budget for 4.2 million. We provided a brief update of the funded programs throughout the 12 grantees. And we also did have the chairs review last year, the 3-year plan, however, was not required to be updated. So just to kind of show the, there's some basic things that were reviewed, some words like juvenile delinquency was removed. That will be in the new 3-year plan, but for the sake of timing and just getting this application and this money to us, we did not change anything to the 3-year plan yet. Okay, but that will come up for the 2026 application. The next slide is just a recap of our members, our state advisory members, some points of contact at the state level. And then for the 4.2 million that California will be receiving, some of that goes to planning and admin, just up to 10%. The rest is broken out. The majority, 85%, is for the grantees. And then the state advisory group gets up to about 5% of that funding. So just for your information, that's how it is all broken down. That's really my updates for 2025 Title II. Are there any questions?
I always have a question about Title II. Will you just remind me when you submitted it?
May 1st.
Okay. And then we would normally see 2026 coming now already, right?
We would normally be preparing for 2026 application now, but we are in 2025.
So, yeah.
Yes.
So is there any, we probably just don't know this, but is there some world that we would actually still have to prepare 2026 this year? So there, because I've seen them do this with their other grants, is that they're just pumping a lot of solicitations out right now because they have to make up for the money that they haven't spent, right?
Yes.
So,
Well, technically, yes, we would be preparing for 2026. And we have semi-prepared for that with the 3-year plan review last year. But there's still some unknowns, you know, as far as when funding will be released to the states. So all I can say is we'll keep you posted. As soon as we know, we'll share that out. But I mean, based on the conversations that are being had in the committees, as far as suggestions for the next round of funding, all of those things are being taken into consideration for next funding cycles. It's hard for me to share a date of when we'll actually go competitive because we have to receive the money first. So, any other questions? Okay. If not, then I will move it to Fatima. Thank you.
Okay, in the interest of time, I will begin. My name is Pratima Pandey. I'm Chief Counsel for the program. I do not have any slides, so please take all your notes as fast as you can. I do want to share that just to follow up on the Title II question from committee member Dr. Durkheising. The 3-year plan can be updated by this committee at any point in time. We had, as Crystal said, less than 6 weeks to submit the prior application. And so we were really running short of time. But as we have shared with other committees as well, it's perfectly fine to amend it. We have a 90-day window between the time this committee decides to amend it and then we resubmit it to OJJDP. Okay, moving gears. So there are 3 lawsuits that I've been updating this committee on. And so we'll begin with the first one, which is the County of Los Angeles and Los Angeles County Department of Probation versus VSCC. That is the lawsuit that was filed by Los Angeles County. They wanted a stay and washing of the finding of unsuitability that was issued by BSCC in late 2024. That lawsuit is proceeding. There was a status conference for trial setting on May 7th, 2026. I do not have an update on what happened, but technically a trial setting status conference is basically looking at witness lists and trying to figure out who will take how much time, who will have what witnesses, et cetera. So that's just a procedural update. I don't have any substantive updates. That continues through the court system as it is. The second lawsuit that I have updated this committee about in the past is the Henry Brandon case, where OICR has been requested to submit a friend of the court report. That particular report specifically requires OICR to provide the court updates on the ending girls incarceration work here in Los Angeles County. And similar to the questions that were being asked by Member Biondi, the court has asked our expert, subject matter expert, Lindsay Rosenthal, that you heard from a few minutes ago, similar questions about what's happening on the ground and what can happen to ensure that part of the depopulation plan includes diversion opportunities so that we can get girls out. The next court hearing for that is scheduled for today, but the parties submitting friend of the court report have not been asked to show up, and there isn't an actual hearing in the courtroom today. What is required is that all the parties submit their reports. As we speak, I'm just finalizing. Lindsay's finished updating the report. It's going through its reviews. As I've shared with the committee before, the Attorney General's office is the lawyer in courts for state departments. And so we're going through the process. This evening before 4 p.m., we will be filing our friend of the court report, which is an update, most of which this committee heard from Lindsay a few minutes ago. The final one that this committee wanted to hear about is the state of California versus Los Angeles County. This is the large lawsuit that was filed by the Attorney General they had initially filed for a motion on receivership to take ownership of the juvenile halls here in Los Angeles. That case, as you recall, the court denied the motion for receivership, but did not dismiss that lawsuit. And in that lawsuit, what's happening is there have so far been 10 order to show cause hearings. There are 3 large subject matters that the court is hearing testimony on. So the way it proceeds is the state of California, the Attorney General's office, produces witnesses who provide information to the court. Then Los Angeles County produces their witnesses, and the court asks questions, and they keep moving on. So the 3 buckets that the court is hearing for this particular lawsuit is, one is data collection, reporting, and the frequency and content. The second is staffing. As you all know, one of the pieces of the findings of unsuitability from BSCC includes staffing and what that does with respect to the care of the youth in there. And the third topic that the court is hearing testimony on is use of force. The court has concluded all the testimony on staffing. The court is in its last stages for testimony on use of force. The next court hearing will be on June 26th. This case is being heard in the Central District Court, Department 34. So this is not a criminal case. It's proceeding in civil court. That June 26th, and on in August, there are 2 dates. I have the dates from the DA's office, but there are 3 more order to show cause hearings that have been set to finish out the use of force related testimony. When the court finishes the use of force related testimony, and it's anticipated to be done by August, they will move on to the last topic, which is data collection. That's how fast I can speak. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have one question. On the staffing piece, is that a part of the June 26th?
No, the staffing piece is done, but the court hasn't ruled on anything. The staffing pieces were what they began. So they had almost 9 court hearings, 8 court hearings at staff.
So when they still have people working 20-hour shifts, they still got a staffing problem.
Yes, unfortunately.
The second case that you brought up, I haven't heard about this. I'm just curious who brought that case and what the grounds were.
Oh, the Henry Brandon case, that was an order to show cause from the courthouse. The judge basically ordered probation to show up to court to respond on why the youth at LP should not be released and moved to another facility, given that the SCC has issued a finding of unsuitability. It's titled and rebranded because Brandon is the petitioner in that case.
Okay.
So the court basically issued an OSC. And then as part of that, the court then asked friend of the court reports to be filed by certain parties that are working with LA County establishment on various diversion issues. And as you all heard from Lindsay, if we can get diversion correct, we'll actually be able to have girls released and go back home and be in the community. So that's an essential part of the depopulation.
Yeah, thank you.
Then, I'm all done. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the OYCR team members for your presentations. Before I move along, I want to just quickly say, ask if there's any other additional questions from the members on these two presentations, four presentations. Not, just want to say thanks again. Now I would like to introduce our ombudsman's person, Lisa Hartz, who will present on the statewide work of OYCR's ombudsman's office. Then we will hear from Tanika Shahi after lunch. We're adjusting our agenda, so after you're done, we'll hear from the other person. If that's cool.
We're a team.
Oh, a team. Oh. Sorry about that. So, yeah.
I did want to say that if your blood sugar is dropping, there's cookies and fruit back here.
Cookies and fruits in the
And-
bag.
and coffee.
And coffee. And
Yeah.
sorry if you're on the.
And
virtual
everybody's
screen.
welcome to participate.
Hi, everyone. A lot of you I've met before. My name is Elisa Hartz. I'm the ombudsperson for OYCR. It's great to see you in person and especially to be here with my buddy. Ombudsperson Tanika Shahi Gomez, a frequent collaborator. And LA County is incredibly lucky to have Tanika and her team. I believe she has team members here as well, who she'll introduce. I'm really glad to be here. I've presented to you before online. It's really good to see some of you in person here in LA, especially because before I worked for the state, I worked at public council for about 5 years. So this is a community that's personally important to me, and it's great to be back in Echo Park. As I think most of you know, the OYCR ombudsperson is the state ombudsperson. So we have jurisdiction to receive complaints relating to youth incarcerated in any facility around the state, any local facility. There are no more state facilities. And the complaints can relate to violations of rights or harmful practices. Anyone can make a complaint. Youth can make a complaint, but also parents, teachers, probation, mental health providers, community-based partners, attorneys, and all of these people can and do make complaints. The state ombudsperson is a brand new thing, which was created with OYCR and with the closure of DJJ. So before that, there was no state ombudsperson for local facilities. So our main functions are here on this slide. So we kind of largest part of our work right now is receiving, investigating, and where possible, resolving complaints relating to incarcerated youth. We also report to the legislature. We'll be rolling out trainings on the Youth Bill of Rights. My colleague Ahmed Nam, who's with us online, I believe, is leading that effort, and we're hoping to have those out soon. And we encourage you all to invite us to present in any venue that it's appropriate. And then finally, with AB 505, which started on January 1st, 2024, we have to visit every facility in the state at least once a year. So there are 60 distinct addresses, and our team goes out and visits each facility at least once a year. We've done that for 2 years and are working on our 3rd year. And Ahmed is also leading the site visit work. This is just a quick demonstration of our flow of our process. Some of our process is required by statute, and some is policies that we've implemented ourselves. So we get most of our complaints through our helpline, which is a phone line, but we do get complaints by email and letters from youth as well. Youth don't typically have access to email, but they do write us letters. We make our screening and recommendation within 3 days and assign the case to staff within 3 days. And then the notification step is required by statute. So we must notify the chief probation officer that we're conducting an investigation. So if we decide to investigate, we notify the chief and we also notify the complainant. We conduct the investigation, we try to keep the complainant updated. And then at the end of the process, after we've received records, potentially done an investigative site visit, conducted our any steps we need to take to get the evidence we need. We make findings, we write a findings letter for the chief. That is not required by statute, but we have decided that it's critical to the process because if the chief needs to know what the outcome was and what steps they need to take. And then also share that with the complainant. We typically don't provide a letter to incarcerated youth, but if they want us to give a letter to their attorney for confidentiality reasons, we are always happy to share it with someone who's, if they're currently incarcerated, share it with someone outside the facility. Our timeframes are, this is our goal. We do not meet this time frame always, and it's a high priority of our office to increase our complaint resolution times. When we're talking about violations of youth rights, we look to many different sources of rights. So I just wanted to kind of share this graphic, which I think shows the expanding circles of rights that we consider when we're doing our evaluating complaints and doing our investigations. So at the most kind of immediate level is facility policies. So facilities are required to have policies by Title 15 on all sorts of things. And so we'll look and see, is the facility following its own policy with respect to this particular issue? Then Title 15 is the kind of higher level state regulations around juvenile facilities and what they need to do. The Youth Bill of Rights, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a moment, and which you should all have a copy of. There's more available here. The Youth Bill of Rights summarizes the rights that young people have, incarcerated youth have in California. It's already existing rights under law and regulation. Then there are additional laws and the state constitution that equally apply to young people. So things like First Amendment rights and certain of the penal codes apply to incarcerated youth. And so we'll look to those bodies, of course, federal law and constitution. And then we do look to, when we're making recommendations around in the efforts to resolve cases and offer approaches to addressing the issue, we do look to national best practices. So these are not necessarily rights, and they wouldn't be required or even necessarily a harmful practice to not do the best practices, but we do offer best practices derived from the national landscape. And there's a Sarah, I don't know if you can put this link in the chat, but the juvenile justice advocates have these conditions of confinement facility standards and resources, and they have this national best practices around facility standards that we also look to for recommendations. The Youth Bill of Rights, as I mentioned, is really a foundational document for the Ombuds Division. Every young person has to get a copy of the Youth Bill of Rights when they come to the facility, and there are posters that have the same content in the living areas of the facility, in the visiting areas, in classrooms, in many areas of the facility. And this is what the youth can look at this, identify their rights. It's a surprisingly powerful document, even though it's not creating any rights. It's sitting with a young person and watching them read their all of these rights that they have. You can just see their faces change. So many young people say, like, I'm in juvie, I don't have rights. I know this is just how it is. And when they see, like, no, you actually, you're being held accountable for things that you've done, and you continue to have rights, and you can take steps to advocate for yourself. It's a really, really powerful conversation. This is a summary of our current data. So we hit the but this doesn't show the totals, but so we've exceeded 1,000 complaints total. As of June 15th, we've had 1,197 complaints since 2022. And in 2026, so far, we've had 271 complaints. So I think we're on track to probably have around 600 this year. Our helpline calls, so those numbers are that reflects not just the complaints coming in, but also the outbound calls, all the phone interview work that we're doing. So you can see that our phone lines are incredibly active, and that the ombuds team, there's 4 people basically who are answering the helpline and doing these investigations. So you can see you can see that we're very busy. We're also really trying to increase our investigative site visits. So we do the annual site visits. We have to visit every facility every year. But we're also really trying to increase our investigative site visits. Typically, we don't announce the investigative site visits, so we just show up and do what we need to do in the facilities, whether it's, looking to see, do they have the appropriate size clothing stock, or interview a youth, or kind of see what's happening in a unit. So that's a really great tool. I believe I spoke to you about our 2024 legislative report that is available online. We're in the process of finalizing the data for our 2025 report, and we'll definitely share that with you when we have it. So the data that I'm going to show you is from 2024 still. Just to give you a sense, this was from 2024. These were the top complaints received by counties. The legislative report has every county. You'll see LA is number 2, below San Diego, even though it's much bigger. This year, LA so far is number 5 by a long shot. So the order is Kern has 67, Sacramento and San Diego have 30, San Joaquin has 21, and LA only has 20. And we can talk about why that might be. I think part of it, or honestly, much of it is because of this person here, and the resource that your young people have of a local ombudsperson, which is really unique in the state. I think I can't think of any other county that actually has a true ombudsperson that youth have access to. There are probation staff who call themselves ombudspersons, but they're typically more of a liaison for us, or doing PREA investigations, or working with grievances, but not like not someone who's really there to resolve complaints like Tanika and her team are.
What's the difference between general and youth? I may ask that youth. What's general?
Oh, general is a complaint that's not from a youth. So like from a parent, teacher. Yeah. Yeah. For every complaint, we make a finding. So we have different findings, closure findings. If a complaint is substantiated, that means that we found the complaint to be true and there was a rights violation or a harmful practice. If it's inconclusive, that means there was a dispute of fact that we couldn't resolve, in order to make a decisive finding. Then we have a kind of confusing category called no findings, but that's a situation where we, for instance, the issue might already have been resolved without our intervention, even before we sent the notification letter, or there was no records, or the complaint was withdrawn. And then referred out, if we may refer a complaint out for another body to handle, or unsubstantiated if we find the complaint is not true. The decline to investigate numbers were very high in 2024, and they will also be in 2025, but we have a much better way of showing why we're declining to investigate. I think it's not like we're just sitting there and saying, I don't want to investigate that. That's not an issue. Often the complaint will encourage the young person to file a grievance, and then the grievance will resolve the issue, and then we won't notify the chief. It's just not worth anybody's resources. And the goal is to get the complaints resolved at the lowest level. So that to us is a success. And we'll have more granular data on that for 2025. Speaking of resolutions, so findings are really important to us. It's really important to us to know what is happening in the facilities. Are there rights violations? Are there harmful practices going on? But really the kind of crux of the ombuds function is to resolve the complaint and to get to the desired outcome of the complainant and for the young person. So these are, I thought it might be helpful to talk about some types of resolutions that we achieve and kind of use some LA specific examples. So one, for certain types of complaints, we are able to get to the specific desired outcome. So for example, we had a complaint in LA where a parent called because their kid had come into the facility with a jacket and they were released without the jacket. They went to, sorry. Oh, we're good. Okay. They were sent to the camp, transferred to the camp from LP, and the jacket didn't go with them. Jacket couldn't be found. So the goal of the complaint was to get the jacket back. This one, we referred to the LA County probation ombudsperson, and a very expensive jacket. Yes. They ended up going to the property room and like digging through about like 8 bags of clothing that were going to be donated to Goodwill, which raises questions for me. But anyways, actually found the jacket. It was returned to the parent so the specific desired outcome was achieved. There might be other specific outcomes like a young person wants to be in a certain program or wants to move units or has a very specific goal. And in LA, we frequently refer those to Nick and her team because they're on site, they're able to, they're part of probation, they're able to kind of make things happen in a very immediate way. Then there's cases that we resolve through systemic or policy change. For instance, revising a policy. We had a complaint in LA about girls not getting equal access to phone calls at LP, and the facility administrator at the time agreed to revise their policies so that the girls are getting daily phone calls, and it was a written document, and it was like impacting all the girls. Query whether that was actually implemented, but it was supposed to be a policy change, which is now moved because the girls are at Kilpatrick. Robust collaboration and technical assistance. This is an area that we're really beefing up because we have a new training and technical assistance unit that's led by my colleague Ahmed. A really exciting example of this collaboration has been led by OYCR's family engagement specialist, Cole Lancaster, along with Mark Varela and Annie Salsic, who's I believe is online. We substantiated a complaint about visitation practices and basically in LA, and basically that parents were not being supported in visiting their young people, really onerous dress codes, people being turned away. So sent a findings letter and offered technical assistance, which with a several month delay, but better late than never, especially when this collaboration has been so robust. And fast forward now, LA County Probation has revised their visitation policy in really productive ways, exciting ways. I don't think the new policy has been released yet, but this has been I think it's been a year-long collaboration maybe, but a very, very robust technical assistance partnership that arose from one of the complaints that we made a finding on. Unintended consequences. Sometimes you ask for something and it turns out to not quite solve the problem. Not in LA, but we had an issue where young people were saying that they were hungry and not getting enough food. And so the department took the initiative and got their lunches doubled. But it turned out that they doubled these bologna sandwiches. So instead of one bologna sandwich, they got 2 bologna sandwiches. So we went back, you know, after that, after the complaint was resolved, and we said, you know, how's the food situation? You know, has anything changed since we were here? And they said, well, now we're getting 2 bologna sandwiches. Okay. And then a lot of the complaints don't get any response. I think, you know, we do, including in LA, despite the productive partnerships that we've had in many instances. And I feel like it's moving in the right direction. But often, you know, we'll make findings about use of force, for instance, or other kind of suggestions about if we substantiate a complaint and then make recommendations, we just don't hear anything back at all, you know, despite offers of technical assistance. And this is common in a lot of counties, and this is an area that we really that we're working on. And now that we have this training and technical assistance, you know, we're hoping to expand. So the one thing I wanted to mention that is not on the slides is I thought you might be interested in so for our 2025 data, I have some data on the top issues of complaints in LA, coming out of LA. So the top the top issue is staffing, which means that things like mistreatment of youth, unfairness, power struggles, unprofessional behavior. There's 15 cases with that issue, 14 cases alleging excessive force, 13 alleging issues around medical care, like delays or insufficient medical care, 12 cases, 12 complaints relating to safety and security, things like failing to stop youth on youth assaults or, you know, feeling unsafe. And then the 5th top issue is family engagement, so visiting and phone calls. That is a kind of statewide overview with a little bit of LA focus. And I will pass it to.
There's a couple of questions.
Online, there's a couple of questions. Member Dr. BJ Davis and Biondi.
Go ahead, BJ. I've been talking too much.
That's not true. Your questions are always really on point. I'm just curious. So in one of the slides, you were talking about it was a spreadsheet and it showed the number of complaints by county and it had them ranked. And Tulare County was an outlier. I mean, because that's a really small county, and the reason I know is because I actually went to high school there. It's that one right there, and I mean, compared to San Diego, Los Angeles, and Sacramento, it's much smaller. So I was just curious as to, and the majority of the complaints were youth complaints, and so I'm just curious as to, was that a lack of resource issue? Because I know that Tulare County, you know, I don't think their budget is as large as some of these other counties, and it's pretty rural. Or was there something systemic that you know that caused that kind of outlier? And if it was a systems issue, was it addressed and resolved? I'm just curious about that.
So that's a great question. I think the other question that I would add to your list of questions is, or the other, I think, point that's important to consider is this is the number of complaints received. And so the fact that we're getting a lot of complaints from certain counties in some ways makes me happy because it means that the young people have access to us. If you have any group of teenagers who know that there's someone that they can make a complaint to, they're going to make a complaint. And so when there are counties that have, very few or no complaints, that is alarming to me. And that tells me that we need to work more on a response. So I will say that this shows that Tulare is giving really good access to their youth or giving youth access to contact us, which is a big a really important thing. I think what I would look at is at the closure findings, we see that there were 20 complaints that we received. It looks like we closed 8 in 2024, and only one of them was substantiated. And so I think just distinguishing between the complaints received versus the complaints, what the resolution was, that's an important thing to do as well. And I think, we really try to encourage young people to use their local grievance systems, because the facility has the ability to resolve issues quickly. But sometimes they still, even for those types of issues, they still like to call someone from the outside and feel like they might get more effective responses. So that's not a very specific response to your question, but just to kind of give some context for those Tulare numbers.
Yeah, I was just wondering if, they were having disproportionate use of force or something like that, or if they just were unhappy with too many bologna sandwiches. So.
Yes, let's not dismiss bologna. No, I believe we would have to look at the issues there. I know that there were several education related complaints that we addressed, in particular around access to college, which was a big shift, from when you have the older youth coming into the facility, the obligation to provide college access really increases when you have more youth who are in that positions.
My last question is this. So when you investigate and there is a finding, and I know you try to resolve it, so what happens if you get resistance to your recommendation for resolution? Is there teeth to your finding, or could probation, whoever, could they just say, well, we're just not going to do it, or we don't agree with you, or what's the process for making sure that it gets addressed in an appropriate way?
So if we substantiate what we believe is a Title 15 violation, we refer those to the BSCC for review. So anything that would fall under Title 15 would be within their purview. And the BSCC, of course, is the regulatory body, and they do have the power and authority to make findings around or to make required corrective action plans. We do not have we cannot make anyone do anything. So we can make recommendations. We can work with departments to support them in implementing the recommendations. We can talk to them about why we're recommending what we're recommending, but we can't require them to do anything. We are, I would love it if we could follow up with departments on every single complaint, but we don't have the bandwidth right now, but that is an area. We are certainly increasing our offers of technical assistance, but those offers have to be accepted in order for us to engage after the complaint is, even if we've made a substantiated finding.
So in general, how are your recommendations received? Do you get much resistance or pushback, or in general, do most of the county's probation departments or law enforcement, are they like, okay, we agree with you, and we want to make the necessary changes, and we're happy to do it? I'm just curious. I'm just curious about how the system works as it relates, because ombudsman's work is really important, but it can be very difficult. I mean, and across different professions.
Yes. And you're asking very good questions. It really, I think there's 40 counties that have facilities 40 departments, and the response is different depending on what the department is. Some I think are very open to recommendations. I think, and some of them are, I think, feel like they're being, feel like it's more punitive than collaborative, and so don't engage with us at the same level. But we have, I think we have been getting like meaningful, actual, tangible results. I mean, I'm proud that we're making the findings and that we're documenting rights violations, but the resolutions are really where the, what the goal is. And so when we can get them to change a policy, when we can get them to rethink, phone access while youth are on disciplinary status, when we can get them to increase parental visitation, or, reduce barriers, those are really, really, great moments.
Well, thank you. And thank you for the work that you do. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, I still have a couple. Having spent a lot of time and hours on our Los Angeles grievance process, what I found, first, are yours all phone calls? Is that how you receive all your complaints?
It's not all phone calls. It's mostly phone calls from youth and some youth letters from other people. We do get email complaints, but yes, it's mostly phone calls.
But from the kids, I'm most interested
From the
in.
kids, it's mostly phone calls. Yeah.
Okay. Well, what we found when the numbers dropped of complaints, it was because the forms weren't there. You had to fill out a grievance form. That when the numbers dropped, it meant that the access to the process was being denied. That was one. And also that the kids found it useless. Now, I noticed throughout here that very few are substantiated. I mean, it's just such a small percentage in each one of these circumstances. And we found that oftentimes it was little things that were easily responded to, but weren't responded to. So, do you look into that when you see that the number of grievances or complaints has dropped significantly? Why?
So I think the reason why we don't have very many, or one of the main reasons that OICR Ombudsperson does not have that many complaints from LA is because there is the LA Ombudsperson, and young people don't necessarily know who they're calling. Sometimes they call us and they're intending to call the county Ombudsperson. Sometimes they know that they're calling us and it is intentional. And so we work closely with Tanika's team. I think I think to really look at what like youth access to Ombudsperson in LA, you would need to combine our numbers with
that would have been helpful to see that. Yeah.
Well, I think she's about to show you those. I believe that's one of her slides. So yeah.
Okay. And then the other question to you is, what are they generally? I mean, if you were to rank them, is it food first or use of force first?
So in LA, from 2025, those were the issues that I told you. So it was staffing first. So like, power struggles, unprofessional conduct, like, staff being rude, staffing, then excessive force, delayed medical care or insufficient medical care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Safety, security, and
the
family.
likelihood of that dropping off so dramatically is unlikely in my view.
I'm not sure what you mean by dropping off.
In other words, if those were the complaints early on, but within, month to month or whatever this is, that dropped off dramatically. it's not that the use that those things stopped that much that soon. It's more likely that you're no longer, it could be likely that you're just no longer hearing about those things. I mean, I find these incredibly low numbers of complaints.
I agree. I like the LA numbers are very low. I agree with you. I'm not sure what you mean by dropping off because this is just 1 year, what we're looking at here. And I think this year we've had 20 so far from LA. So we're not, I mean, that might be fewer than like we may be on track to have.
So
fewer
it just started, how long ago did it start?
What?
I mean, is this a month or is it 6 months?
This table 16 that's the year 2024. Just the year 2024.
Right, okay, the year, yeah. I mean, okay.
But I agree with you, and we're, working on having a stronger presence in the LA facilities, working with advocates, working with attorneys, just making sure that everybody knows that the state ombudsperson is also a resource for young people in LA, in addition to the local ombudsperson.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Perhaps we could do the last part.
All right, it's always nice to be the person that's before lunch. So that means you guys are gonna listen fast. It's back. Okay, so I'll start there. You guys know what an ombudsman is, I'm assuming. Yes. So one of the wonderful things, thank you for the invite. I never get invited out, so nice. So you guys are kind of like my practice presentation for the big leagues. So our office actually was established in 2004 by Chief Higa. So in 2004. However, not a lot of people knew what the ombudsman is, but he was a visionary at the time, I see. I didn't come about until 2018 as a product of PRIT, the Probation Reform Implementation Team, PRIT, and the POC, the Probation Oversight Commission. So even though we had an office inside of the probation department, it didn't become robust until PRIT and the POC. Just a little background. So the complaint was that, yeah, you guys have an ombudsman. Yeah, there's a phone number on the wall, but nobody answers the phone. That's because there was one staff in the office. And with old technology, you had to be in front of the phone in order to get the phone call. So what was the wonderful, life, technology moving forward, probation, Los Angeles County got a new phone system, and you can transfer the phone call to your cell phone. So I know this is really, who cares? But it was really important because now you would be able to take the phone with you and be able to answer it anywhere that you were. So I call myself the ombudsman team of 2.0. Me and Miss Bentoncourt, Wendy Bentoncourt, and my secretary would basically transfer this phone call. We answered the phone at nighttime. We answered it on the weekends. And my personal philosophy is that if you're able to take that phone call initially, you're more than likely to get all the information that you need up front and also be able to talk to that person at the time that they're having the stressor or the issue. And get, you don't get like half of a phone number and all that good stuff. So therefore, originally our numbers looked about 200, 2018, we got about 200 calls. And last year, we got over 1,000. So we're getting calls from, I guess I could go look our numbers. We're getting calls from parents, from the youth, from our advocates, look, from the POC, from all of our agencies are giving us a call. Our credible messengers are calling us. So this is just for 2025. We deal with youth, we deal with adults, we deal with a whole bunch of others because people see ombudsman on the internet. When you put in ombudsman in Los Angeles County, I guess we've been called so many times, we're the first person that pops up. So even though they're calling about long-term care, we take the phone call. They're calling about DPSS or Medi-Cal. We get phone calls from everyone and everywhere. People, 211 thinks that we're the ombudsman for Los Angeles County. We only handle probation. AB 109 are juvenile facilities. And I just want to make note, we are not the juvenile grievance process. So inside of each of our facilities, there is a grievance process. So I think Ms. Biondi was mentioning the forms. So there are forms in each of our facilities where you can file a grievance. You can ask for, what you want your resolution to be. The complaint was staff are throwing them away. Or the person I want to complain about is the one picking up the form. Or the grievance officer is sharing the information. So probation wanted to, it's there, it's accessible, they're able to utilize it. Then we moved to an electronic grievance process. And, you'd be able to go through LACO and input your grievance through the LACO system. That is not us. We are separate. We're an additional resource for youth to have. And staff oftentimes will call us and say, I have a youth that has a complaint. So our staff are getting to know who we are as well, even though we've been there forever. But so your advocacy, this works because you're putting pressure on the outside of probation to do something. And we're kind of like the level, LA County is huge. So they wanted, LA County probation wanted to be able to put somebody on the inside who is able to also take complaints. And then you also have your state ombudsman who can, if you don't want to call Los Angeles County. So we are confidential, independent, not so independent, but in the fact that probation, the ombudsperson reported directly to the chief. So it wasn't, we're not assigned to juvenile facility or area office. We are with the executive. We are actually located in internal affairs. So if there's a concern regarding use of force, anything that's potentially will lead to discipline, we refer it to internal affairs. So if we receive something that potentially, based on probation officers, Bill of Rights, probation officer Bill of Rights, we refer it to internal affairs. Internal affairs will make that official formal investigation. So when you say what happens when OYCR sends their conclusion to an incident and they find it substantiated based on their review, those in Los Angeles, we would refer them to internal affairs because staff could potentially be disciplined, and you have to follow all the rules and regulations in regards to that. Look, we need a commercial. I want to give a shout out to my ombudsman team. So just recently, with the court's orders and the POC, I actually got staff. So excited. Now I know you're like, who cares? Like, they don't listen. They're not going to do anything. But we got to start somewhere, right? I have Janet Ramos over at Los Padrinos. I have Miss Julio Aguilar up at Barry J. These are staff that were designated for these facility locations. Melinda, shout out to Melinda Bear from she's East Camps. Miss Thomas is over at CVK Kilpatrick, who started out, she got her teeth, they grew in at LP and then we moved her over to CVK. And who I have, Yesenia's on the phone on the hotline. So our hotline is really my secretary. So y'all be nice to her. So she takes on that initial, I call it, my old secretary, Karina would call it, they took my blessings. The parents that call and cuss us out, they're frustrated, they're traumatized. They're like, nobody is listening. The least we can do is let you get your concern. We might not be able to do anything. However, we can hear you. We just got a new management system. So we're going to have all these wonderful data. Shout out to Ms. Bencourt for working with our technical folks. So I just wanted to show you, we have our triage, a complaint comes in, we have email, the telephone, I feel like we have all kinds of new gear. And like I said, we went from 200 to 1,000. And so therefore, this is how I know that our information is getting out. We go to resource fairs. We go to expungement fairs. We go to, in the facilities, we go to the youth council meetings. We share the OYCR Youth Bill of Rights. We make sure that the youth in the juvenile facilities have them. So that's the wonderful partnership with us. They can, if OYCR gets a phone call after hours and they have a message, they call us, we can get the youth on the telephone confidentially. We can pull a youth out of their living dorm to make a phone call confidentially. So that's the wonderful partnership that Lisa's talking about. If every probation department could have just somebody dedicated to the ombudsman office, that would be wonderful. And then you can just build from there. Understand that I am probation. I belong to Los Angeles County Probation. I am employed by LA County Probation. I believe the DCFS ombudsman, the STRT, the short-term residential treatment programs, their ombudsman is actually located in the auditor controller's office. However, with that's a positive. The negative is they don't necessarily have access to all of the systems. So with us, I know I'm all over the place. With us, we take a call, we can verify that call. We know when you're in our care. I can read the case notes of that probation officer. I could probably, I can see why you're upset because I can read the case notes and tell what happens. So we're internal, we have access to all of that, which makes it a little easier. Now, if we could just share all the access with Lisa, I'm sure that would be a positive, but you know. So that's the positive. We can go back and then ask you another question. We can go back. We can acknowledge your concern. We do have confidentiality rules. We cannot talk about a probationer to someone that's not the probationer. So we get a lot of adult parents that call us. We know that you know that person's on probation. However, we cannot disclose that due to CORI and regulations. So we will research it, collect additional information needed, develop an action plan. Now that I have staff at different facilities, I can call them and say, hey, can you go and stand in front of that director or stand in front of the superintendent and make sure this happens or ask for this? It's all about relationships. So all my staff has been trained with the United States Ombudsman Association. They've been going through training with in mediation. And so we're trying to operate as true ombudsman as best we can, being neutral and being able to refer it to internal affairs much faster. We do wellness checks for parents. Sometimes a parent during visitation, they just want to see, they just have a feeling in their gut. Just in my gut, something is wrong. Not a problem. We can go look at it. I told the parents all the time, I'll go look at them. I tell the kid, your parent just want me to look at you. You good? you know, in the more extreme cases, the types of calls we get. The types of calls we get, our top three are issues with visitation. And actually, one of our ombudsman works on the weekends during the visitation. They can take those complaints. Claims of abuse, we will look at PREA, Prison Rape Elimination Act. When the lawsuit cleared with Los Angeles County with the PREA cases, the sex cases, we get a lot of calls of folks looking for settlement money. Like, I don't know what the process is for them. I'm trying to become an expert, but they're not necessarily looking to file a complaint. They're like, where's my money? Like, it's already gone through. So somebody talk to me afterwards. How can I direct them in the right way? And programming in college classes. So I get complaints on everyone. I get complaints on DYD. I get complaints on LACO. I get complaints on mental health services, DMH. But one complaint I got, I know I'm not supposed to go into any specifics. My county council's not here, right?
Good.
Okay, good. Okay. No. You know, a young lady said, I want an African-American therapist. I'm not talking to anybody, and I'm gonna act a fool until I get one. Oh, okay. That's fair enough. I said, fair enough. Okay, so we went to the head of DMH, and he actually said, we are actively hiring African-American female therapists. I was like, oh, okay. So I don't know what happened with that young lady. Tell me what happened. I think we got her. Okay, all right. So is the therapist there or the kid still there? Oh. I don't know if that's good or bad, but okay. Adult concerns issue. Now, staffing issues affect everybody. They don't just affect juvenile hall. When we have staffing issues, so we're trying to fix staffing issues, but we're also affecting adult. Okay, so area offices are AB 109 offices, issues with reporting, travel permits. We get a lot of tips from the public. For some reason, people think we tip hotline. And we take them. So we will take a complaint. You feel that person is on probation and they're doing XYZ. We cannot confirm if they're on probation. However, we still take the information and we will email the probation officer. It still gets to them. Now, a lot of people say we don't do anything with the complaints. The problem with ProBar is I take your complaint, it goes to internal affairs, staff is discharged, all from your complaint, your activism. However, we can't go back and tell that person got fired. So in the end, it looks like nobody did anything. So I'm going to go on record to say such. Just because you don't hear back does not mean that something didn't happen. And this is our AB1 of victims. We get a lot of calls from victims, restitution. They want their money. This person took away, the court ordered me, $1 million and I'm getting $25. So we've tried to develop a little song and dance. I don't know how to tell them they're not going to get that money, but it's hard. It's hard out there. I'll take questions what I can't do. I can't make the department do anything. Okay. I cannot violate confidentiality. So therefore, if you call me and you want to be confidential, that's wonderful. We will take your information because it's hard sometimes when the person calling is confidential, they don't want to give us the information. So it's hard to research it and resolve it. We don't necessarily have to share your information with anybody, but it would be nice if we have it. We cannot handle matters outside of, probation jurisdiction. We can't force a specific outcome. Like, the outcome you want. We cannot force it. We have to let the evidence take us there. We cannot provide legal advice or psychological counseling, even though I think I'm a therapist. I think I'm a pastor. I think that I'm the best lawyer in town. So that's from being with probation. I've been with probation for about 28 years, believe it or not. 28 years, adult, juvenile, pretrial services. I know a little bit of everything and a whole bunch of nothing. We cannot act as a judge or an investigator for formal discipline. We can get it to the right spot. Even if you're in a group home and you want to complain about the group home, the STRTP, we can get you to state licensing. We refer it to state licensing. We can refer it to our folks that investigate placement issues. You know, we know how to get it to the right spot. Okay. And we do not replace the juvenile youth grievance process. We still let that grievance process go through. I oftentimes, when I talk to youth, even though they give me the complaint, I tell them to actually practice their youth advocacy and to file a grievance as well. And sometimes I know a few years ago, I was able to double check the grievance system. So if I tell 10 kids to file a grievance and they say they did, I can go and look and see what happened to their grievance. So it's kind of a little double check there. And yeah.
Do you have a question on the Zoom by VJ? Dr. Davis?
Okay, we don't accept questions. We only accept compliments.
Well, good job, first of all, then. So in one of your slides, you said, because I have an education background and criminal justice involvement, and you know, there's good data that says that, you know, probably one of the best interventions for both juvenile and adults as it relates to what people call rehabilitation, but I'm just changing the trajectory of a person's life course is education. So in that slide you had, one of the three biggest complaints you said was programming and education. And so I had kind of two questions, because I'm not going to be able to come back after lunch because I have this crazy meeting with the permitting department on the thing that we're trying to build here. But something came up in our policy and legislative subcommittee meeting yesterday that Dr. Porter is going to talk about probably when he presents out. But we were talking about SB 1157, which is least restrictive. And we had some concerns about how that might affect youth and these facilities dropping down to less restrictive, and how that might affect their ability to go to colleges like the UCLA college program that actually has had really great results. So I was wondering, what are the programming and college classes complaints? And do you have any thoughts about how SB 1157 might affect the programming as it relates to youth being able to access programming as part of their rehabilitation programming or interventions or support?
I have all kinds of personal opinions. I have all kinds of personal opinions that I will keep to myself. However, regarding the complaints that we receive from programming or from related to college classes, probation has moved people around and really focused on those college classes. Dr. Corral is now in charge of ensuring college classes and college credits. You know, what I tell parents all the time at visitation is to go to those LACO meetings. LACO, we meet once a month with LACO, and they have a parent meeting, and you're able to talk about college, high school credits, and IEP. I mean, that's the best. I always tell parents, go participate in that, because it's a very good program to have and to be able to ask questions. As far as college classes, Dr. Corral, you'd have to call Dr. Corral in to ask him to elaborate on our college classes. I know initially when we received all of our, the SYTF youth. And, you know, many of them have already graduated from high school. So to get a college career, you know, college classes, the department had to implement something. So I'm not really able to speak on that. But, you know, the youth want to go to college. They want to do something during the day. And programming, I believe now DYD is not sure, is doing programming. And you know, sometimes there's a lot of programs going on and the youth just, they don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. You know, it's just like being a teenager that day. You don't want to do it. Or, you know, yeah, I can't speak on that specifically.
Okay.
But I know how to refer you, like Dr. Corral, Jesus Corral.
Okay. I know we already kind of passed
Yes.
time, so I don't. Do you want to say the last question? I see in your hand, right? You had a question or comment? Oh, I thought you said, okay.
We love comments.
If not, you could, I do want to transition us to like lunch because it is already one.
Can I just say one more thing?
1:10 already. Go ahead.
I just want to say to the LA community, just how incredibly lucky you are to have Tamika and her team. Like it's really,
We're moving.
to take advantage of them and encourage them and talk to them and tell them what you need from them. And yeah,
And the head of internal affairs, look, I have to say, Joseph Galvan has really pushed the department into expanding the ombudsman and ensuring that we get trained and making sure we have staff. So much appreciated.
Thank you so much. Your presentations, appreciate it.
And take a phone and call us.
Yeah, please take some of the duties from the desk over there and call the ombudsman. At this point, we are a little bit off our agenda schedule time. So what we're gonna do, it's 11, it's 1:12 right now. We're gonna take a quick 30-minute lunch break. We'll be back here by, let's do, it's 1:12, so 1:40. No.
45.
1:45. So let's be back by 1:45. Go grab some food. There's a lot of spots around here and Sunset Boulevard. There's Rodeo, there's Pizza, there's a bunch of taco trucks. You can go with no wrong taco truck here. It's not Sacramento, so you're good. And there's a spot down here. There's a lot of spots around here. Just put in your Google map. And there's a lot. You can't go wrong with none of them. Right? So again, be back at 1:45, please. Same with you all in the virtual reality. Come back at 1:45, please. Thank you so much. You just couldn't hear me. Just couldn't hear me earlier in the virtual world. We're gonna have a community presentation by the National Compadres Network by Mr. Maestro Jerry Deyo right now. And I'm passing to you.
Thank you. And my mom would get mad at me for talking while you guys were eating, but you know.
Yes.
The other thing is, you know, I like bologna sandwiches. The bologna sandwiches was a treat when I grew up. You know, we had mayonnaise sandwiches and Kool-Aid sometimes. You know? So if you had bologna, man, that was good. You know, I guess you don't want bologna every day, and you want more than one bologna sandwich. But thank you all, and I just want to acknowledge everybody that's involved here, Director Lucero, and everybody that all the work that you all have done for many years on behalf of youth and families. You know, I just want to acknowledge the efforts. All of us do the best we can, and we learn as we go on, and that's the important thing, is that we learn as we go on. You know, my background is my parents. My dad is from Texas. He's a very proud Texan man, the oldest of 15. My mom is from Mexico. Juarez came from a smaller family, oldest of 14. They married. Some was born in Texas, and we moved to California. And I was raised in Compton, so I'm straight out of Compton, straight out of the barrio in Compton. I grew up in a black-brown neighborhood in the 50s and 60s. And, grew up in that neighborhood and learned a lot about life, about justice and injustice. Saw my parents do the best they could. You know, right now, my body is going through some stuff because I'm remembering. And as a kid, we lived across the street from the elementary school. We'd be on the schoolyard playing on that schoolyard. and you're playing and one of your friends goes to the fence. And you go to the fence to see what they're looking at, and then you hear one of your friends crying. And so you go to see one of your friends crying and you hug them, because that's your friend, and you realize why they're crying is because either immigration or the police have picked up one of their relatives and they're crying, and you hug them, but then the bell rings and you go inside and the teacher says, turn to page 46, and you put all that down. And those kids that pushed all that down then can't sleep at night, and their leg shakes, and they don't know what to do with the anxiety. So they start acting out, and then somebody asks them what's the matter, nothing, and don't be messing with me, and now they get in fights, and it gets ugly, and they go home to after school, and the mom said, how did it go? And you say fine, and you do a fake smile, because you don't want to make your mom feel bad. And some of that happened to my brother. Grew up like that. He was the oldest. And he had to translate for my parents. Go and translate, and he didn't translate everything. Because in those times, they said some ugly things about my parents. They said racist things, very ugly things. He didn't translate that. Where did those things go? They stayed inside of him. And it made him look at my parents like, well, you can't tell me what to do. I can read and write better than you, and I know what to do now. And so it became issues. But my brother was also the caretaker of us. He was the one that kept the bullies away. He would fight. Now, even though he messed with my brother, man, you mess with us, he's getting down. He's fighting everybody. And after you fight for so much, it begins taking a toll on you. You become known as a fighter. So people challenge you. They challenged my brother and stuff like that. And then, in my house as well, my dad worked 2 jobs. When we lost his jobs, then it became hard, and he began to drink. And then him and my mom would get into it, and my brother would step up. You don't hurt my mom. And my dad would get into it. And then my brother go on the streets with all the other kids. Didn't know what to do with all that stuff. He got locked up. And I was a little brother that would go visit him on Sunday with my mom. And I wondered, I told my mom, why is he got to be behind that fence? Well, but I'll watch him. He won't do bad no more. No, he can't go home. Well, why can't he? Can't go home no more. Been staying here for a little while. I remember going home and riding that car feeling sad, but even at 7, I knew as a young boy, because they taught me, you don't cry, suck it up, push it down. But at 7, I wasn't crying for nothing. Till like 2 o'clock in the morning. Everybody was sleeping, under the covers, you begin to cry. Begins to affect your digestive system. You understand that all those traumas in your life then affects you physiologically, right? And it heightens your blood pressure, and it begins to elevate, and sickle cell anemia comes from a lot of those things in our African-American communities, and heighten, physiological issues and mess with us, right? And my brother did this time, and he came out, but there was no healing going on. In fact, he was more angry when he came out, because they made him feel worse that way. So I went on in my life, and because I saw what that did to my mom, I tried to stay on the straight and narrow. Went on to school, got my education, became a psychologist. And I'm gonna tell you, that jacked me up worse. Because they talked about diagnosis and age and stage development and developing all this stuff. And I'm saying, shit, we weren't raised like that. They didn't separate us at birth and, attachment. Just no, they didn't do that. We slept together. And they said, well, and they brought Freud in. If you sleep too long with your mother, then you have these Spanish bunch of moms. Oh, shit, no wonder I'm all jacked up, And then as a therapist, then I had the ability at 23 to bring a family in, look at her kids, and write an order to the court and say, take these kids away. At 23, I could do that too. I could say, lock this guy up. He needs to be violated again. He's not safe. Even though I didn't know their family and the assessment and didn't take into consideration their fears and the demographic issues and the trauma and the systemic inequity and the racism and all of that stuff. I could write that and could take these men away, and we saw it. We saw many men, Black and brown men, getting incarcerated or some being deported, and we saw children taken away. And it still bothers me that taken away, because many of these kids here in LA were sent to McLaren Hall, and we know about the history there. And so it's going to be better for them. And it wasn't better for them. Put them in foster care, and it wasn't better for them. So my journey then says, what do we do here? Because it wasn't just about stopping the harm or dealing with the problematic behavior. It's really, about how do we bring some semblance of healing, health. You can stop the harm. You can lock people up. But if when you put people away, they don't come out better, then what are we doing? And when you bring them back, if there's no resources to deal with all the stuff they're going through, then trauma that's not transformed gets transferred. Let me say it again. Trauma that's not transformed gets transferred. And those young men become dads. And those young women become moms. And people attract likeness. So now you got two traumatized people that hook up, and they do the same thing for the next generation, right? And so our work in National Compadres Network has been around for many, many years, almost 40 years now, was based on bringing healing to communities, to people. And I think, we always ask for permission this way. Even we do groups with young people. I don't care, they're incarcerated, they've been whatever. I still ask a young lady, you give me permission to ask you a question, brother? Can I ask you a question? I'll just ask you something about your dad or your mom. Is that okay? And the reason we start there, because I learned as a young person that anyone that shows up in your life, you got to greet them. It wasn't coincidentally in Compton on Friday night to hear, go to the door, your uncle and aunt, 6 kids. You got to look happy like they're there. Hey, come on in. Mom, my tia's here. I can't wait. ¿Qué pasa? And I said, man, you're just talking shit about her last night. But that's okay, When they show up, you welcome them. And then my mom would feed them. And I would get nervous. I said, Mom, give me the chips and cookies, because that little chunky boy, he eats a lot. He eats all the chips and cookies. Let me hide him under the bed. We're not going to have nothing. No. My mom would feed him everything. And I didn't understand the significance of being welcomed, of feeling wanted. So our role as a National Compadres now, we do capacity building, we do technical assistance, for organizations, for even in probation. We've trained a lot in probation and a lot in different facilities, but a lot in communities, because we can bring all the youngsters out of the facilities, but where do they go? And if even community-based organizations are not prepared to deal with the level of trauma that they're struggling with, then they're going to reenact it again, right? And so, part of what we look at, premise here, is that culture heals. Now, my family wasn't perfect, but there were some things that my family taught me that were rudimentary. Some values that were rudimentary. And part of my work in these 50 years that I've been doing this work, it baffled me as a young therapist. I would go in communities and communities, high risk area, poverty, trauma, gangs, violence, drugs in a community. And 9 families on that block struggled, but 1 family did okay. Same block, same demographics, same issues. I said, how does that single mom raising those 4 kids, get them to go to school? They don't get A's, but they do okay. And how does that mom do it? Same block, same demographics, same issues. How does that grandma that's raising those boys that are taller than her, get them to go to church? And how do those parents that work 2 jobs, so it's really, they're never home, it's really the older sister that's raising the kids, how did they do that? And so what I began doing is sitting with those 1 families. And I call it in spite of all the craziness, How you get the kids to be okay? And in the research that I did, I found there was some very significant basic things, fundamental things that are, and they're part of the way you're raised, part of the way that you see yourself, part of the way that you look at life, all of those things. Right? And so everyone comes with that story. And I learned from my mom that when people come to you, if you want them to come back, you acknowledge them and greet them. How you doing? You want something to eat? Sit down. Good to see you. Right? So, and you learn that in neighborhoods, you learn that amongst, you know, and I grew up in a Black-brown neighborhood, right? So my grandma was a very prayerful woman. You know, she'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and start praying. No, you get up so early, Grandma. Guys around later too. You know? But she would pray that way. And then after she would pray at 4 o'clock in the morning, she'd come to the room where all of us were sleeping and she'd give us a blessing. She'd bless us all. And I didn't like it. 6 o'clock, she'd wake me up. Why you wake me? You could bless me last night. It wasn't still good for now, you know. And she blessed me up, right? Didn't understand why she felt she needed to do that. But the interesting thing is when I would go to Miss Mosley's house, Tyrone's grandma, she'd be sitting on the porch too. And I go pick him up, and Miss Mosley, is Tyrone here? Yes, come here, baby, come here. She called me baby, come here. Bless you, child, bless you. But she blessed me too. I must really have the devil in me. She said, oh, I didn't understand energetically what that does to you when somebody says, you're a blessing. But I didn't do good, you're still a blessing. But I messed up, you're still a blessing. You got it in you. You got it in you. Which part you gonna water? You gonna water the blessing or the water the wound? Which part you gonna water? When I work with these youngsters that think they're all that and done stuff, I say, youngster, you got something in you, man. But you gotta know what you gonna water, which side you gonna water, who you gonna hang with. Because these guys over here, they're gonna help you water that wound. That's not, but we got some other guys over here. You know, and so we begin then to understand that in terms of development, right? That we all go through a process. And that childhood is real important. There's some rooted teachings right there in childhood. If you get them there, you're gonna be better as an adolescent. Many of our youngsters don't get that, right? So they become adolescents that are not rooted, right? And so it becomes significant that we reroot them. But the reality is that some adults don't have that either, right? So that's, I'm glad somebody asked, well, how about working with parents? If you don't work with the family, you can have the youngster okay, but then they go back into that environment that energetically is not healthy. And they remember, they have a genetic memory in them that remembers the chaos, remembers all this stuff, and they react, they go right back there, right? So it becomes significant that we recognize, but you know, that there is a process, there is a developmental process, and that even though in all families there's a sense of woundedness and a sense of struggle, there's also a sense of blessings and a sense of teachings. I didn't grow up in a perfect family, but I learned some things from my dad, you know, and I learned some things from my mom, my grandma. I learned some things from Miss Mosley too, right? And here's the teachings, the rooted teachings, right? So it becomes the fundamental aspect of all it, and we've got evidence-based practice, and we've done the research, and we got all that stuff. If you want all that, I can give you all that too. We've been doing it a long time. But here are the teachings that those grandmas or those people, first thing is that you're wanted. If you don't feel you're wanted, if you don't feel you're valued, then for what? What am I here for? I'll tell you, working in schools, you can tell what kids feel they're wanted because they show up. You can tell what kids feel they're wanted because they don't get expelled and suspended as much. Black and brown boys get suspended and expelled 10 times as much, which says, I guess you're not wanted as much, right? The sense of you having a purpose, right? Even with your wounds, you know, what is your purpose in life? What are you supposed to be doing here good? And you know, we've seen in throughout OICR some of the beautiful things that have happened. Young people have come out, got involved in a community-based organization, got them into some advocacy, got them into, we got to do something for somebody else, and now they have a purpose, right? And now they have a reason to come to this group and do things rather than hang out with those guys that are smoking blunt and getting high. Oh, I got a different purpose. That's gonna mess up my purpose now. I can do something. I'm an artist. I'm a rapper. I can spit words. I have these prolific things in my head. I can speak out. You have a purpose, right? And that becomes significant. But it also becomes significant. You have teachers. Part of what we do with the Compadres Network is we do training and capacity building, so that the teachers that are out there, the people that are out there, really have the ability to understand what is trauma, and understand not only what is trauma, but also what is healing, right? And so where is the safe, compassionate people and the safe, compassionate places that our youngsters could? Every community needs that. Parents need that. Where do mamas go to heal, right? Because that's significant too. So when we talk about this, we have to understand this too. We live in a society where past and present equity and justice produces stress and trauma, even today, right? It's happening today. So we have to deal with this, and we have to also prepare young people. You can't let this take you down. If you get pulled over by a cop, keep your hand on the wheel. That's not fair. Keep your hand on the wheel. That's not right. Keep your hand on the wheel. The reality, right? I mean, you got to know how to get through life without it taking you out. So part of the rites of passage, the curriculums that we have, prepare young people for, in spite of the inequity, in spite of the trauma, let's teach you what is in you, right? And let's help you navigate that. Let's put some people around you. We recognize that the impact of generations of unresolved woundedness. My dad was wounded. He was wounded. So some of his woundedness got on me too, right? It's not all that these kids are carrying. They're carrying generations of stuff, right? How do we deal in the epigenetics will show you that, that the generations of wounds. And so when we're funding organizations, you can't just fund them for a year or 2 years, because we're talking about generations of stuff, right? Many foundations, you get a 2-year grant. Oh, shoot. 2-year grant to undo, 50 years of trauma. So even how we relegate funding and all of that becomes really important. Oh, what happened to the next slide? Someplace there. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so here, let's see. Lost it. Okay, so here, this is what I want to show you, because this is part of what we recognize, is that young people that are confused by everything that impacts them, if you don't deal with it, they'll get depressed. That's the first stage. If nobody helps with the confusion and depression, it goes to the next thing, anxiety, right? The anxiety. And the anxiety becomes then issues where you can't sleep, you can't sit still, and think about it. If you got any of you had heavy anxiety, it's not a good feeling, it's an ugly feeling. Keeps you from sleeping, right? And you can't deal with that, and you get in trouble, and one of your friends says, here, man, hit this. That's gonna help you. I don't want to smoke, man. I'm getting caught. Just hit this for a little bit, man. And you hit it. And it makes you feel better. What you can do tomorrow, because it had less side effects than the Xanax and all that other stuff, right? You can hit it again. And after a while, you hit it every day, and your friend said, man, I can give you this, man. You got to do some work. Hey, get this dime bag, take it over here, and I'll give you some for yourself. It's not because you want to run drugs. It's because I got to deal with my anxiety. If we don't offer alternatives for that, then young people will find their own resources. But if you don't get the anxiety, it's going to go to impulsive, reactive behavior. And that's when we see a lot of impulsive, reactive stuff, the fighting, the ripping off, the doing things, even, the behavior that hurts other people, right? If nobody helps you with that, it turns to self-sabotage. We hurt ourselves. Brown people kill brown people. Black people, domestic violence, sexual abuse, gang violence, we hurt ourselves. Right? And that's what we see in many communities. You don't go there, it then goes to rage, the addictive suicidal stuff. And so we have youngsters at all levels. But if you only treat them at one level, you're not going to deal with this, right? And so part of our training and technical assistance and capacity building is recognizing this. How do we embrace all of these things and help in the healing process, right? Because this is true. Trauma not transformed will be transferred and reinforced by others around you, right? So that becomes then recognizing if we don't do nothing about it, it's not going away. You can take people out of systems all you want, but if the community and the resources are not there to embrace them and heal, it'll get passed on to this next generation, right? And that's the, So what typically happens, right? And I'm trying to finish this in the next 5 minutes. But, you know, first, you know, there's harm that goes on, drugs, violence, gangs, all of that. So you want to interrupt that, you stop that. That's the goal. But what's happened in systems for years is they felt, well, we need to interrupt this, but we also need to punish, right? And the research will show you punishment doesn't help. It doesn't heal. In fact, it reinforces more trauma. The question becomes in these systems, are we doing this? And you know, we're the ombudsman, you know, even you're not giving me a bologna sandwich. I mean, that can hurt too. You know, you're not paying attention to me. I can tell you don't like me. You know, all of that is a way of punishment, right? So sometimes we will give intervention services, anger management, you know, substance abuse, which are good, okay? But they still don't deal with it. Trauma. So we do some treatment. Let's do some psych stuff. Let's get some medication. Medication have side effects too, right? Sometimes medication is necessary in order to balance out the neurological system and all those things. But it's not long lasting. So what is necessary is this transformational healing, where you're transforming and you are allowing a way to eliminate, to discharge, to be able to talk about the genetic memory of the harm, to be able to transform that even neurologically. We know how to do that now, right? And there's ways of doing that that can help people long term. I just got a presentation on fatherhood, right? You want to be a good father, you get some things you got to do and some things you got to stop doing. Right? Let me help you do that. Yeah, but I get anxious. Let me help you. Let me teach you how to breathe. Let me teach you some good music. Put that crazy music, put some Luther on it. So put, you know, some nice music that calm you a little bit, man. Don't be carrying that crazy music because, you know, that guy, all is going to stimulate you in a certain way, you know? I mean, that's good for sometimes when you want to hype up and stuff, but you want to be your kids, man, and you want to, you know, let me teach you how to use music, how to use sound, how to use movement, right? Let me teach you how to do that, right? And so part of that is the healing process, you know, that we can utilize our culture. We could utilize, you know, the elements of art and all those things to really help unstick this thing. It's not unsticking. Can you press the next up? Let me see if I can. So based on that, you know, what we do is let's go to the next one. I have enough time. Part of healing is not only addressing the physical, mental, cognitive, behavioral, but you got to deal with emotional stuff. That really is the trigger for many of our young people. What they're feeling, what it connects to, and the spiritual. The spiritual, I don't mean religious. I mean sense of hope, sense of faith. What's that bigger thing that you can rely on when nothing else works? And the thing is that it becomes important, the four elements of this, in order to really bring about, you know, true healing. It begins with us as practitioners. We got to balance out our own issues as practitioners, probation officers, you know, mental health. You know, I'm a therapist, but I'll tell you, mental health really sometimes is not helpful because it categorizes, diagnoses, and medicates. Doesn't necessarily heal, right? So we have to be selective about, you know, what we're talking about in mental health too, you know, but it's really the insecurities, the biases, clear our own intentions. What are our intentions? Is it to punish or is it to heal? You want to do intervention? You really want to do healing, right? Commit to a process of guiding you towards transformation. That's what we're really about. It's a 4-stage process and we could go long into this, but I just want to share this with you. The first is you got to acknowledge where we're at, right? Let's understand, you know, the things that we need to work on, but I'll understand the things that we're good at. And let's work on the things we need to work on and embellish those things that we're doing right, right? And then integration. And this is individually for people, but systemically. What do we need to integrate more in our systems and what do we need to disintegrate? We need to take out. What do we need to say that's not helpful, right? And then finally, the movement. How do we do that, you know, in a balance with the system, with community-based organization, with families? How do we do that, right? And so part of our training is building capacity that way to be able to do that in a good way. This saying is a Mayan saying. Es en la que tú eres mi otro, yo madre. I see you, you see me, you are me, I am you, we're in relation. You know, one of our youth hurts, we all hurt. You know, we have to recognize that. We have to, you know, be about recognizing. And so our work with OICR right now, we do rites of passage program, teach people how to do rites of passage with young people, both for male and femme identified, and circle keeping. How do you hold space? How do you hold circle? Because one of the things is if you can sit in a safe space and be able to share, it emits it emotionally and neurologically from your body, right? It takes it out of here and here. Let's just put it out there. That's the first step. Now, what do we do with it, right? So teaching more practitioners in communities. You don't have to be mental health practitioners. There's a lot of people in community. My grandma was a healer. She would heal us up. You know, Miss Mulder would heal us up. There's people in community, that could heal you up that way, right? And then the webinars, series of webinars talking about this so that we can begin to expose this. And then we are just finishing a policy brief, right? And the policy brief is healing centered youth justice, helping young people to thrive, you know. This work is really needed so much, you know, and I want to thank OICR for giving us a place to be able to really actualize this. You know, this is really from the many years that, you know, that many of us have worked in our organization, Cisco Gallardo, who's actually over this. He's a former incarcerated, you know, and he's run programs all across the country. You know, Ozzy Cruz, you know, was a teen father. I met him at 15. He came in, probation sent him, and came into our program. We ran a teen fatherhood program, and we welcomed in. I said, "Come on in, Miko." And Miko is my son, and I said, "Have some pizza." And you know, and he stayed for the 15 sessions. And after 15 sessions, "Can I do 15 more?" I said, "Shoot, we can get paid for 15 more, fool. Come on." He said, "Well, come on. I like it. I want to stay." And you know, and we let him stay, you know. And I asked him, "Why did you want to come back?" He says, "This is the first time anyone's ever called me son." He said, "I like the pizza too, but you know." Ozzy's been with us for 20 years. He's a national trainer. Mario Osuna Sanchez, right? Runs all our training programs. Maestra Deborah Camarillo, who runs the women and girls. And let me just say something about women and girls. There's so much need there. And the funding is minuscule. Very little funding for women and girls programs. And right now it's very significantly needed. Foundations are not funding women and girls stuff. Nobody's funding women and girls stuff, you know. It's not coincidental, right? But we recognize is that when women are good, when our mamas are good, when our sisters are good, our families are good, right? It's the center. If we don't devote energy to that, to the leadership, to the healing, to the transformation of the women and girls in our LGBTQ population, we're not going to be whole as a community. So, you know, this is, you know, part of the work we do. I wish we had more time to discuss. You can see some of the young people, some of the people here that we've trained. And any questions? I tried to rush through that because I could.
From members, questions, you have some claps on the screen I see right there. Anybody that has.
Thank you for what you do. I'm a pastor, so I really relate with what you're saying. And I'm still I was like, this is a Sunday morning service right here.
Thank you, Pastor. Yeah.
Wait, you have someone in the audience? Go ahead.
Yes.
Wait, come
How
on.
do people apply for your services?
Specific questions.
Well, we offer a lot of training and technical assistance, and you know, through OICR, we offer those to, you know, people that are connected to OICR and any people in community that way. So, and we put out, you know, you can ask Naomi's right there. She helps run the program, so you can get connected with her. But you know, the reality is that when we advertise, they fill up. They fill up. You know, we have a retreat that we do for women. It filled up in 4 minutes. You know, there's just, you know, there's not enough funding to support the capacity that we need to do this. And so let me mention one other thing. Staff that are doing these programs in the communities, they need healing. You know, and so we're doing a lot of work on how do you, after you've dealt with this issue, how do you take care of yourself? Because what we're seeing in communities, even the ones that are doing great advocacy, because of they're not dealing with it, then the infighting stumps among themselves. All of that stuff too, and that's just unresolved trauma. But so yeah, we offer it in different places, but definitely, we will get a hold of Naomi. Go to National Compadres Network com as well, and our information is, I think, is it on here? We do by the way, we do a podcast called Healing Generations. We've got about 250 episodes with a lot of different people on there. I have a book called Recover Your Sacredness if you're interested in that. I'm also a children's book author. So you can get information there if you're interested. But any other questions? One last question, comment?
I'll say something. I'll say thank you for your presentation. I think a lot of those things that you talked about resonate with us. I know with me specifically as someone that went through the system and, now has been doing this for 12 years. I've been doing this for 12 years. I've never had therapy, but I understand how real it does get, and it gets real. And sometimes we don't work on ourselves, and I think that the trauma does follow. So everything you talked about really resonated with me, and I'm pretty sure with everybody here, because we all work with these young people and we see it, and I feel like the main thing we have to do is ensure that young people are getting everything they need if they're in custody. So when they do get released to the same communities where they got in trouble, then they're not failing, because it is true. Sometimes when you get released to the same communities that got you in there, it's actually not the safest. And and sometimes we advocate for the things, but we don't know exactly. We need to really understand youth experiences and understand the environment, surroundings, noise, people,
all of that.
physical things do make an impact on that person here to see themselves as a valuable person, or just someone that can do great things. Because the world tells us otherwise all the time.
Let me just tell you that you did get therapy. Your mother probably gave you a lot of therapy. Our families therapizing us a lot in a good way. And I think what you're saying is very correct. That's why we need to build capacity in communities, so that when youngsters come out, they have a place to go and they have a way of a healing path, but also in institutions as well. And we need to, and that way they can be that link that way. Look us up in any way we can be supportive. Again, and thank you, OICR, for supporting the work that we're doing. We really need to expand this type of work, so that our communities can be healthy and healing. Thank you all for it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if you guys please follow up with Maestro after this, connect with him, get his books, everything. Follow with him. Now I'm gonna go ahead and again, thank you, Maestro. Appreciate you for taking time to be here. Thank you so much. I'm gonna go ahead and pass it to Crystal to take us to the next part of our agenda, which is gonna be some presentations around our work that we're doing in our subcommittees. But I'm gonna go ahead and pass it to Crystal, who's gonna facilitate this next part of the agenda.
Yes.
Yes. So I'll go ahead and pass it to you, Crystal.
All right, everyone. We have some time now to hear from each of the subcommittees. And then after that, we can take member questions and comments. As Chair Mendoza said at the beginning of this meeting, we really encourage you to engage with the work of the committees and provide feedback and reflections. Work these committees are engaged in is essential to the work of our main committee here. So this is a great opportunity to generate ideas and create momentum for the work moving forward here. All right, so I'm going to introduce each of the subcommittees. We're going to start with the Community Investment and System Accountability for Youth Justice, otherwise known as CISA, and that is chaired by Dr. Dirkhuizing. So let's move to slides.
All of that?
Or however you would like. Yeah.
Okay, so, it's only a couple slides. I really just did it just for some grounding, but, so we've been a pretty active subcommittee, or at least trying to be. So just as a reminder, one of our main, we have kind of like two pillars is the way that I look at it, is one really focused on strengthening the relationships among Title II grantees, kind of focus on that community capacity building piece, but focus on Title II grantees, current and former. We want to really think about how can we connect all these organizations together, kind of create a network of practice, so they can serve as, informational resources and so on to each other. And then our other pillar is really focused on working to promote transparency and accountability around funding, where money is coming from, who can get the money, supporting some of the CBOs to get access to funding, which is why I'm always asking about Title II grants. So again, that's our focus. And then what we had decided as a committee, on the next slide, you can see to focus on is we wanted to hear, these were our goals, but we wanted to make sure that those goals aligned with what the Title II grantees were also thinking. And so we decided to do a needs assessment to connect with the Title II grantees to really learn about like their interest even in collaborating and networking across the orgs. They're not all CBOs also. And also was curious how aware they were of us, of the SAG, of OSCR, of our subcommittees, of the all the other acronyms, the coordinating councils, right? And so we had developed a whole set of questions for them, and we reached out to everybody. But unfortunately, we did not have a lot of people responding to us. So, and you can see on the next slide, we were only able to conduct 2 interviews with current Title II grantees. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
They're also sunsetting on their grant cycle. That could be, they don't really know who we were reaching out. Well, we have some, theories about why maybe they didn't express an interest. But it's obviously discouraging as well. They should want to talk to us since, we set the stage for how Title II funds are, allocated. So we decided, instead of trying to hound people down who are obviously very busy also, is that to distribute a survey. And with Crystal's help, I asked if she could send the survey out or the email out because they all know her, and that seemed to be very helpful. So I actually I have 4 surveys already. I think there's only 8 grantees, right? Or there's 12, sorry. So I was being helpful. I'm like, okay, give her a second. Well, we have 2 interviews and we have 4 surveys now. So we got maybe about half, right? And I'll follow up with you. And I think if we just ask, maybe send one more push, we can maybe get a few more folks to respond. So by the time we come back to you next time, or I come back to you next time on behalf of the subcommittee, we should be able to have some type of report out. Maybe I'll just do like a little printout or some 1-pager or a little brief report on what we learned from the grantees and how they want to get connected to each other. There's already some ideas through the interviews that we have around how they want to collaborate and connect to each other and the type of resources that they want. And so hopefully in September, I'll have some more kind of really specific recommendations from the grantees around what we can think about for the next funding cycle. Again, that's why I always ask Crystal, I know we just don't know a lot in terms of timelines right now, but we have been having discussions in the subcommittee about, would it perhaps even be necessary to include some, expectation around networking among other grantees in our fees and stuff like that, so that they do take the time to talk to each other and at least talk to us, right? How can we bring them together in ways that are helpful for them, right? And being on this SAG for a very long time now, which is kind of shocking. We used to say a lot in the beginning, or at least when 10 years ago or whatever, we weren't as connected to the Title II grantees, even though most of the time we spent was around thinking about the funding allocations. Things have changed. But I will say in the subcommittee, we regularly have presentations from grantees. So I will say, even though they're not always reaching back out to do these interviews, that they are always willing to come and present to us. Since I last met with you guys in March, we've had Conexión Bright Futures. They presented to us last May. They're great. We had Transform Youth Justice Program from Sierra Health present to us. We had The Exception up in Riverside Ramon Ramos present to us in March, talking about how they're getting funds into the community. And so, you know, that's Operation New Hope, I was talking about quarterly, but yes, we've had, you know, we've had a lot of people come and present. And so it's been a really great model. Like, we have been learning from folks in these kind of more informal ways through their presentations. And I think that was something that we as a SAG maybe always kind of had wanted. So it's nice to have that within the subcommittee. So just remember, if you guys ever want to join those and you see like an agency that's presenting and you want to hear about them, like jump on our calls and you can hear about what some folks are up to. We're taking a break this month because our meeting fell on Juneteenth. So we decided to take a break. We meet for 90 minutes every month, which comes quick and it's a lot. So a lot of planning and great folks that so we're taking a break in June. We're coming back together. I think it's July 17th on Friday at noon. So all of the meeting information is posted along with our meeting information. So I think those are I'll have more next time, but that's where we're at right now. Kind of mid data collection, if you will, mid needs assessment.
Thank you. Yeah. Any questions about the CISA subcommittee? All right. If no questions, we'll move on next to Dr. Porter's subcommittee, the Policy and Legislative Advocacy Group. Dr. Porter, let's.
Oh, see my gap, there goes my group there. Yeah, great. Awesome. So thanks again for the opportunity to update everyone on our work, the Policy and Legislative Advocacy Subcommittee. Over the past several months, our subcommittee has been continuing to focus on strengthening data-driven policy recommendations and advancing equity within the California's youth justice system. Since late 2025, the subcommittee has met monthly in recognition of the importance and scope of our work. Next slide. A major focus of our area has been the deferred entry of judgment program, beginning with presentations from OYCR and the review of data from the Department of Justice Juvenile Court and Probation Statistical System. It's a mouthful. The subcommittee sought to better understand how DEJ is being utilized throughout the state. Members have requested additional information beyond statewide totals, including county level data, trends over time by year, analysis by race, ethnicity, and gender, representation by private versus public counsel, and predisposition detention status. The next slide. These requests stem from our commitment to understand whether opportunities for diversion are being provided equitably across California. So during our joint discussions with the RED subcommittee, we emphasize that addressing disparities requires acknowledging them and examining them at the local level. So again, county level analysis was identified as the most strategic approach for identifying inequities and informing future policy solutions. Next slide. I'm pleased to report that at the request of the subcommittee, OYCR developed and advanced a DOJ data request application to obtain by county DEJ information. And as of our May meeting yesterday, that request has been submitted by OYCR's data and research team and is currently awaiting approval from the Department of Justice. So that's a big deal. I want to just give them a hand for making this happen, that application. If successful, OYCR indicated that this framework could be replicated to study additional youth justice issues in the future. The next slide. The subcommittee is also continue monitoring key legislation affecting youth justice in California. And during our recent meetings, OYCR provided briefings on several measures that address visitation, education, probation, treatment, and alternatives to detention. And you guys may want to write some of these down. Among the measures discussed are AB 1646. Brian's the author. It will strengthen family engagement by ensuring youth in juvenile facilities have access to contact visitation, with restrictions permitted only when significant safety concerns exist. This is called the HUG Act here, and it's interesting. We've heard a lot of reference to it throughout the day about the need for contact with youth and the parents, you know, and stuff. So it's interesting that this is a need right here, but it is, yeah, you think that this is not a need, but it is one. So strongly support. AB 1659 ransom, it would improve reentry planning by requiring school districts to designate transition liaisons responsible for coordinating records, enrollment, and course placement for youth returning from detention facilities. And so there's that. Then there's AB 1886, this would generally limit probation terms to 12 months for certain youth populations, while allowing courts to extend supervision when doing so is determined to be in the best interest of both the youth and public safety. We have AB 1902, Pellerin, would expand the authority of secure youth treatment facilities by extending commitment periods for individuals determined to pose significant risk and authorizing referrals to the Department of State hospitals when appropriate. And then AB 2178, Quirk Silva, will create new opportunities for community colleges to partner with county probation departments to provide academic and career technical education within juvenile justice facilities. So expand the opportunities for educational opportunities. And then there's SB 1009, Becker, would require courts to consider less restrictive alternatives before detaining youth in juvenile halls or removing youth from parental custody. And the controversial one that we believe, and Dr. BJ Davis talked about earlier today, SB 1157, Archuleta, I think is how you say his name, would direct the Judicial Council to establish guidelines for determining when less restrictive programs are appropriate placements for youth. And we have our subcommittee members have some serious concerns about that program, this policy right here, SB 1157. So we went through that, had robust discussion, all of those. Again, we are grateful for OYCR's assistance in really bringing those policies to light. Next slide. As mentioned at the top of the meeting, we're able to represent this body here at the Juvenile Justice Annual Conference in DC. The key themes, well, one of the strongest themes emerging from the conference was the importance of youth voice and youth leadership across the country. States are increasingly embracing approaches that emphasize prevention, diversion, restorative practices, and authentic youth engagement. It is something to see when youth helping themselves, you know, and champion these efforts. And I think that is the key right there, and let them lead as we support them in their leadership. The conference also reinforced that California remains a national leader in youth justice reform, and while reminding us that there's still important work ahead of us. The last slide I have, or second to last, looking ahead, we have these priorities moving forward: monitor DJ data requests, explore disparities and outcomes, continue legislative review, develop policy recommendations, and advance evidence-based youth justice information. And then last slide, just want to express our appreciation to all of our subcommittee leadership and members, Dr. BJ Davis, Dr. Mariah Leon, Commissioner Johanna Rasmussen, and then Charlie Nguyen, who just graduated with this, I forgot what his degree in, but graduated from college. They might know, Charlie?
Public policy.
Public policy, okay, that makes sense, right? Yeah, public policy, of course. And so he may be leaving our subcommittee, let's see, takes on his next level of life and in life. So we have an opening for a youth person, our subcommittee. And then, of course, OYCR's partner staff, Fatima, Crystal, Darius, who we just learned is also leaving, going to Norway. As does pursuing his master's in this effort. So we remain committed to ensuring that California youth justice policies are data informed, grounded in equity, and centered on successful rehabilitation. That's our presentation, our report.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Porter. Are there any questions from members or the public?
Yeah, no, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
They did all the work, so it's wonderful.
Hey. If there are no questions, we'll move on to the next subcommittee, the Racial and Ethnic Disparities Subcommittee, chaired by Judge Beck.
Okay, no slides. Yeah, but I don't know if you heard, but we have resolved all of the racial and ethnic. It's a little bit of time, but so we're going to move on to another subcommittee. This is a very interesting subcommittee because we have a wonderful membership. It consists of a lot of new people and then a lot of people who I would say are not, I mean, they are, these people know about racial ethics disparities they're working on. We do a lot of the Annie Casey Foundation and the Burden Society. So what we've been, I think everything we all do, this sort of permeates all of our subcommittees. And so what can we do? Well, we're still in the process, we're relatively new. We're still adding to our membership. We are trying to, I'm hoping we meet every other month. And in our August meeting, we hope to finalize our charter. And this chairing this subcommittee is like holding a pack of wild horses. I mean, people on this subcommittee they don't want to meet in the committee and just talk about things they want to do, but racial and ethnic disparities, individual, institutionalized. I mean, we know there's racial and ethnic disparities everywhere. I think one thing I want to let you know is just the cross-section of the people we have on the committee really is set up in a diverse way to address these. I'm just going to real quickly tell you who they are. We have Dr. B.J. Davis on it. We have youth advisory members who attend, Mikhail Callas-Vanegas from the Bay Area, Reed McGuire from Northern California, Tony Brown from Southern California, and Victoria Birch. I think I saw Victoria in one of those pictures.
Yeah.
Christina Peoples and I co-chair the committee. Christina's great. She is the founder and executive director of the Amelia Ann Adams Whole Life Center in the Central Valley. Sergio Clolinella is the founder of Youngsters for Change and gang consultant from the Central Valley. William Feather is a social worker from the Ukiah Unified School District and part of the Round Valley Tribe from Northern California. We just added Ronaldo Villeda, co-founder of Hoops for Justice, and Vamse Palaguma, the Bay Area. His organization is Communities United for Restorative Youth Justice. I've got a couple of lightweights on there, Laura Rodolfi, the Burns Institute, who is really good. And Sandra McBrayer, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Children's Initiative for Southern California, who is really good. Used to chair our committee. I mean, it's tough keeping up with the good ideas that people put forward, and we just can't time. What have we talked about doing? I think we're all kind of waiting to see what happens. The funding. So our members would like to, borrowing from Annie Casey and Burns, go through, all right, what are the decision points to get these kids into the juvenile justice system? And those decision points are 8 or 9 or 10. You can go to the websites for Annie Casey or for Burns and find it. They start in the school. It's that decision on the street, first meeting with an attorney. What does probation decide to do? Are we going to keep them informed or formally? What's the district attorney decision? What's the detention decision when the judge first sees that person? Then you move on to sentence and disposition. What do you do with probation? There are differences in probation violations between child A, youth A, and youth B. So this committee would like to, with the upcoming funding realm, if it's gonna happen, like to become very involved in assisting and looking at what the proposed grantees are saying, because there's so much knowledge on the committee. We ideally, I think everybody would like to sit down with every local juvenile justice coordinating council in every county and say, look, let's talk about what we can do. Personally, I'd love to do that. That's what we did in Ventura County when we did this 20 years ago. We had, and my wife's there, she was the chair of our JDI efforts and DMC, and we had Annie Casey and Burns in right from the get-go. And you've got to get your hands dirty with people on the ground. Ideally, that's what we would like to be able to do. That's a tall order, which is why we're sort of defaulting to say, okay, well, at least we can maybe we can visit some of the juvenile justice coordinating councils to have them assist us and say, hey, how is the grantee in this county doing? Of course, I'm going to use that 4-letter word, data. I mean, you ain't got the data, you don't know what you're doing. Right. So in many respects, all of our subcommittees, I think, are working on so many similar things. I mean, you know, we were talking with the legislative folks on the DEJ. DEJ is, there's a lot of decision points just in DEJ. The one you wouldn't think, you know, everybody, DEJ is deferred action of judgment, where the youth is basically, he or she's going to admit for the hope of getting through successfully in DEJ and having the case dismissed. Well, you know, we know where the standard, the decision points are there. Was filed, what's the judge going to do? What's the defense counsel do? That's a DEJ issue also, and a racial issue. Because you're bringing so many factors into that decision. So it's really a wonderful group. I love, there's so many people in this group that know a whole lot more than I know about this, and just listening to them and trying to keep up. I wish we could do more concrete right now, but at this point, we're kind of waiting to see what we can do to maybe, and I'll ask this, I can't remember on our SAG. I know the last round, some of us sat on, you know, we set up the committees that actually review the grantees. And I know last time I did, there were like 40 or 50 grantees, I think. I think, don't we also invite others who are not on the SAG that we know are expert in this area to assist us in assessing? So that's another place where members on our subcommittee would like to be involved in that review, that assessment, right, to get going. So it's a little bit squishy right now because there's not so much, you know, definitive we can do other than move towards the type of things I've been talking. So that's what's happening on the red side. Yeah.
I'll just say the 4-letter word, my favorite word. We are asking some questions in the survey from the Title II grantees about, and Crystal knows too, what type of data they collect, but asking them some questions around like what they do with their data, if they include youth and family outcomes or voice and so on and stuff. So a little bit of information. And then in terms of the JJCCs, it reminded me that I know OYCR is doing some surveying of all those councils and whatnot. So maybe an update on that at some point would be helpful.
And the JJCCs, they're different than the local, what I would call the JJ.
I put them all under the, you know, that umbrella of the JJ Commission.
When they have this coordinated council, that's the big umbrella, right?
Well, there's also the local, what was our SAGYJ. They have the local ones that have the power to go to do the investigations.
Yeah.
So that's different.
That's different than, yeah, that's different.
I just can't remember the acronym.
Yeah, I know like Darius.
The presentation, yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't remember all the acronyms either, but they all.
I think he said it, right?
Yeah, right. Darius.
Talked about it.
Yes.
In the presentation.
Okay.
Go.
Well, I can answer the question. I'm online.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Juvenile Justice Commissions. That's JJC. Juvenile Justice Coordinating Councils, JJCC.
Right, Commissioner.
And then
We survey. Who did we survey?
We
Right?
surveyed juvenile justice commissions, so JJCs.
Oh, we don't have one in the county.
Darius, how's that data collection going?
Went very well. We received responses from 22 counties. We're working with the Juvenile Justice Commissioners Collaborative to now review those surveys and the results and develop a technical assistance work plan. I know that we have some folks online who are actually part of the Juvenile Justice Commissions as well.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Was anybody else online from the subcommittee that was just to say anything? Dana, I don't. Right.
Great. Right. Okay, and then if there are no other comments or questions for racial and ethnic disparities group, next we have the Restorative Justice Subcommittee, and we will have an update given by Ms. Jessica.
Hello, thank you so much, committee, for all of the thought and work that you do on creating more trauma responsive and developmental solutions and reducing the size of our system. I really appreciate that. So my name is Jessica Ellis. I'm Executive Director of Sentinel Youth Services here in LA County, and I am honored to co-chair with Kent Mendoza, the Restorative Justice Subcommittee. And right now, our subcommittee really wants to share more information so that you have a more clear picture of all of the different ways you can be thinking about restorative justice and have a good understanding of what it is. So you can think about where you might be applying it and considering it in your other committees, et cetera. So first, we want to share a definition of restorative justice because the term gets bandied about all the time. That has been agreed upon by a diverse group of restorative justice practitioners with long histories of experience across the state of California. And that group came up with the definition that restorative justice is a community-based, non-punitive approach to harm that encourages accountability, healing, and repair. Restorative justice is about how you create, maintain, and mend relationships. Restorative justice processes allow the person harmed to share the impacts and what they need in order to heal. And they allow the person who caused harm to articulate the reasons behind their actions and to take accountability and invite the community to support participants through this process. So it really brings that healing of community. It makes me think a lot about what Compadre Teo shared of the spiritual side of healing. One part of spirituality, even the non-religious side, is our interconnectedness. And what we're currently stuck on in our systems is separation of people, separation from space, keeping the victim and the harm party and the offender apart from each other, versus oftentimes they had some sort of relationship or were in the same community before and are going to return to the same community and need pathways back together. And also part of what we learned in trauma is how within trauma, we can have self-hatred against ourselves, right? So often our young people are harming somebody who looks just like them. And so how are we repairing those? When we come together in a space of healing, we can see, oh, I am you and you are I, and we can heal together. So that's a big part of that. So in that definition, we have a couple elements. So why is it community-based as opposed to system-based? Because our institutions and governments have gotten to a place of being overly sanitized of all culture, and also as Compadre Teo shared, we heal, culture heals. We also say kids and humans heal in relationship to each other. We don't heal in separation. Also our systems are representing control, essentially. Whereas when we bring restorative justice processes into the community, you can have more neutral facilitation around repair without control. And so in restorative justice, the control is given to the parties. We control the process to make sure that it's safe and has safe and equitable process, but then the decision is not made by anybody other than the two folks closest to the issue. That is the person who caused harm and the person who was harmed. And it's usually not such a binary relationship. Sometimes, often there was harm in multiple directions, and we can deal with that in a more holistic way, as opposed to the binary we set up in our courts of one side is completely the victim and one side is completely the offender. So we can get to a more complete place of healing through this. And because the control is maintained by the parties, it also helps address racial and ethnic disparities, because no one is telling you what you must do through their own lens. You get to keep control of what I'm agreeing to do or not. And a true restorative justice process is always completely voluntary for all sides. And the agreements themselves must be completely voluntary for all sides. Restorative justice is an essential tool on this pathway to depopulation of our youth justice system. And it is key at all of those decision points that we talked about that lead to racial and ethnic disparities. There are multiple opportunities to offer restorative justice as an alternate pathway at multiple decision points through the process. So one is we have many providers across California of restorative justice that folks can come to them when there's been a crime or a harm that they do not wish to report to law enforcement and don't want system involvement, but a harm has been caused, maybe even a law has been broken, and folks want it resolved. And so many of us accept referrals from the community directly. A parent, a family member theft between family members and they don't want to report it, but it was a real theft of significant dollar amounts. Domestic violence situations sometimes, and other kinds of youth parent interpersonal violence, teenagers doing damage in the home. Well, we have a lot of families that call police. This is another alternative to get to some of those issues. So that the more we can invest in these solutions that folks can come to directly, also for schools, to be able to resolve all kinds of things without relying on law enforcement, the more we can build up this infrastructure of taking pressure off the system and why we're calling police, so we can reduce calling police on kids in the first place. Then you have restorative justice, phenomenal examples of it used in the state to interrupt the booking process itself. So working with law enforcement in agreements that when someone does call police on a child and they get brought into the station, we can actually interrupt the booking process. They get no booking number, so that whether it's considered a counsel and release or pre-arrest diversion, and come into community-based restorative justice to make things right with the harmed party so that they're not left out of the process. We're not violating victims' rights. And you still get to resolution. We can still work on, paying money back or repairing damages, etc., all outside of the system where the young person gets no arrest on their record. So again, we're shrinking who's even coming into the system. Then you have, once kids are arrested, law enforcement and probation and the DA's office have options to offload into community-based restorative justice while still meeting the needs of the harmed party and not ignoring that, which is the biggest barrier in all of my work in diversion that I see as we're trying to expand into youth development alternatives to the system. One of the biggest barriers we have is resistance from folks in the system, law enforcement, prosecution, etc., feeling like, well, where's the accountability? If we're just doing youth development, what about the harmed party? What about accountability? And so with restorative justice, we're not losing that piece of accountability. And so it's an essential piece that gets buy-in, and then we see it's easy to get to diversion. When folks hear that we don't have a just one-sided approach that's only looking at the child, we're looking at full healing of the harm that's been done, healing of the young person and what's going on with them, and healing of the harm that they may have caused. then you get much more buy-in to letting kids out of the system. And so also with judges, with DEJ, is another option. So we've had judges buy into this. Once the young person's made it right with the harm party, then the judge can close without that sustained petition. The biggest thing is that in our society, we conflate accountability and punishment. And so one of the big things that I want to talk about is just very briefly is the definitions. So accountability is very forward focused, and it's learning the consequences of our actions. How were other people impacted by that? It requires learning and changing behavior. Whereas punishment is just about inflicting discomfort based on what you did in the past. So it's backward looking. And so our system right now is still set up on inflicting discomfort. That leads to zero learning. It leads to resentment, etc., and no healing. So if we want to get to true healing for all parties, then we need to get to meaningful accountability, which includes learning and repairing, taking active actions to repair. So the other thing our committee is going to be doing is looking at the state's Title II plan and making suggestions for ways in which we can bring a more holistic approach that includes meaningful repair, accountability, and healing into that plan, and all the different places that restorative justice can bring that more holistic approach. And also, because we have a new law that was passed in, I think, 2023, AB 60, which requires that victims and survivors have the right to be notified about the availability of community-based restorative justice programs, and that they be notified early and as often as possible in their touch to the system. And so we'll need to be updating the state plan to make sure that that AB 60 is reflected throughout. And lastly, we'll share, and we'll come back and share some more about this. The Sentencing Project, you can check out their website, has done a series of reports, and they released a new one in March, overviewing the effectiveness of restorative justice in diversion, and how just youth development focused diversion only versus adding the restorative justice component, and how that really supercharges our reductions of recidivism and increases of healing for both the young person and the person impacted by their actions. Any questions? Thank you.
So we just want to note the time. We're at it.
Past the time already.
Yeah, we're past.
Got one more person.
Tyree, do you have any?
We are past the
Yeah.
time. I can save them. No, I don't think there's no big update. Just that, we are starting to do some even bigger outreach. It's no longer looking like if you know somebody, send them our way, but like.
This is for the emerging leaders, by the
Yeah,
way.
so this will look like, we might have some TikTok video dances up, so. No, but. And we're just narrowing our scope right now, just to not step on any toes, focusing on LRPs and doing that work and trying to find a way to do that work without punishing their LRPs or being harsh on LRPs, but just bringing a youth-centered approach to it. So that's the biggest update for me.
Any support from our members?
Yes, when you see the TikTok video, please share it. No, I'm just kidding. We will have a flyer going around, so just share it out to whoever you see it. Definitely have a flyer.
All right, thank you all for your presentations. This was a really good meeting. And
Yeah, I'm gonna do public comment.
public comment.
I'm just gonna say, yeah.
All right, so a brief reminder about instructions for participation. If you're joining via Zoom, please raise your hand and we will call upon you to make your comment. If joining via phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. When asked to unmute, you can do so by dialing *6. If you're in person, just raise your hand and we'll call upon you to make your comment. And if your comment is missed, or if you would like to share additional feedback, please email sagyj@chhs.ca.gov. And I'll turn it over officially for public comment.
Yeah, so we're going to do a structured public comment approach. First, we'll ask if there are any youth attendants or members of the Youth Advisory Board who would like to give public comment.
The virtual world, there's nobody in person, so even the virtual world.
There's one virtual participant, Priscilla Stevenson, with their hand up. Kent.
Yep.
And Tyreek, if we can start there.
That works. Go ahead, Priscilla. Timer's on.
Good afternoon. In my family, youth justice is not an abstract policy issue. It is personal and deeply lived. My name is Priscilla Stevenson. Until very recently, I served as a commissioner with the Mendocino County JJDPC and as the JJDPC representative to our local JJCC. I am here because on June 2nd, 2026, the court issued a notice stating that it would dissolve the Mendocino County JJDPC effective immediately, that the JJDPC will not be performing the annual inspection for 2026, and that BSCC would be notified. This is not just a local issue, it is a statewide warning. In Mendocino County, I raised concern when SB 823 funding was approved for staff time tied to follow-up on OICR complaints. I said I was not aware of any other counties using SB 823 funds that way. Chief Probation Officer Eisen Locatelli responded he didn't mind being the first in the state. He is not only the local CPO, he also holds statewide leadership within CPOC. That matters. After that, I requested agenda items on basic governance and transparency, what governs the JJCC without bylaws, how the SB 823 subcommittee is structured, who controls agenda access, and whether the public can meaningfully observe and participate. Our commission was shut down at the very moment it became active again. Active in JJCC, active in SB 823 accountability questions, and active in pushing for transparency, public access, and real oversight. At a time when California is publicly emphasizing proximate leadership, community engagement, and healing-centered youth justice, Mendocino County's response to an active community oversight body was disillusion. If a local JJDPC can be dissolved during active reinvigoration and core oversight duties can be suspended at any time, then institutions are signaling that meaningful community power is acceptable only until it becomes active and effective. This is especially serious in Mendocino County, home to 11 federally recognized tribes and longstanding disparities affecting Native youth.
Actually, Priscilla, I think you made time, but we definitely are logging your comment. Yeah, we will definitely follow up on that.
Yeah. Thank you for your being on the call.
Is there anybody else on the virtual side that would like to give public comment?
Yes, there's a virtual comment submitted via chat for someone that had to leave. I can read that aloud if that's okay, unless there's someone else in the room that would like to speak.
That's perfect.
Okay. I will use the timer as well. This comment was submitted by Natasha Zatsko, and it is as follows. I am Natasha Zatsko from Youth Leadership Institute, statewide nonprofit centering youth voices and leadership. We have youth-led juvenile justice programs in San Francisco and Merced. I support data research in San Francisco Juvenile Justice Center, Juvenile Hall with youth in custody. Regarding grievances in the ombudsperson processes, I have 2 comments and questions. Metrics shown on grievance reports may not be reflective of complaints and issues happening in the hall because of facility staff retaliation, lack of anonymity granted to youth filing grievances, and youth sharing ineffectiveness of resolving complaints in a timely manner or at all. How is OICR addressing these barriers to improve the grievance process to ensure safety and effectiveness? You can tell a youth to practice their advocacy by filing a grievance all day, but if facility staff are retaliating and abusing their power in response, youth voices are oppressed and facility staff's abuse of power will continue. Some serious grievances, such as use of excessive force or filed, and there may not be substantial evidence, especially since some facility units do not have cameras inside units. When it comes down to the young person's word against the facility, how do you adjust this? Noting that probation may have the most updated protocols, and those protocols are often not followed in real time, especially inside the units when probation leadership may not be present or watching. And that's the end of the comment.
Thank you. We'll turn it back over to you. And I think that is the conclusion of public comments. I want to thank everybody for being here today in person. This is a great turnout in person from the public and from the committee members. So I appreciate all of you here for being here today. I hope the next one is even bigger. Yeah, so as you all know, we have our next meeting on Wednesday, September 17th. So please start planning your calendar, your flight, all that. I don't know what it's gonna be in Sacramento.
Yeah.
It's gonna be in Sacramento, so just put it in calendars and keep in mind, it's encouraged for people to be there in person. So once again, thank you. Appreciate it for y'all coming to LA, and those that are from LA, just drive safe and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you everybody on the virtual world. Thanks for joining us and appreciate y'all.